Ladies and gentlemen, the Alabama Senate will now come to order. Our prayer today will be delivered by Senator Andrew Jones. Senator Jones.
Let us pray. Dear Heavenly Father, thank you for this day. Thank you for this Senate and this legislature, Lord. Thank you for the great state of Alabama. Pray that you'll be with us as we deliberate today, that everything we do will be to your honor and glory, because we know that you're the one that's really in charge of these decisions that we're making, Lord. We pray that you'll give a special blessing to each family that's represented here. Pray that you'll be with us as we go about our daily business today and as we head back to our districts, Lord. Bless everything that we do, and thank you for all that you mean to us, Lord. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Amen. Thanks, Senator Jones. Today, the pledge will be led by Senate Intern Preston Turner. Preston is paging for Senator Jones.
Attention, salute, pledge.
Thank you, Preston. Secretary, call the roll.
Mr. Albritton. Mr. Allen. Mr. Barfoot. Mr. Beasley. Mr. Bell. Mr. Butler. Mr. Carnley. Mr. Chambliss. Mr. Chasteen. Ms. Coleman. Ms. Coleman Madison. Mr. Elliott. Ms. Figures. Mr. Gavan. Mr. Gudger. Mr. Hatcher. Mr. Hovey. Mr. Jones. Mr. Kelly. Mr. Livingston. Mr. Milson. Mr. Orr. Mr. Price. Mr. Reed. Mr. Roberts. Mr. Schofield. Mr. Sessions. Mr. Shellnut. Mr. Singleton. Yes, sir. Mr. Smitherman. Mr. Stewart. Mr. Stutz. Mr. Wagner. Ms. Weaver. Mr. Williams.
Ladies and gentlemen, we have 26 senators present, which is a quorum. The Senate is ready to transact business.
Mr. President.
Senator Wagner.
Move that we excuse absent senators.
All right. Any objection? Hearing none, so ordered.
Mr. President.
Senator Wagner.
Move that we dispense with the reading of the journal from the previous legislative day and that we adopt said journal.
All right. Any objection? Hearing none, so ordered. Now move on to introduction of bills. Senator Jones.
Mr. President, I ask that we allow for the introduction of bills anytime throughout the day.
All right. Any objection? Hearing none, so ordered.
Thank you, Mr. President.
Now move on to committee reports. Secretary, call the first committee.
From the Committee on Transportation and Energy, Senate Bill number 233 receives a favorable report with one amendment by a vote of 8 ayes and 0 nays.
This bill has received a second reading to be placed on the calendar for next legislative day. Secretary, call the next committee.
From the Committee on Tourism, Senate Bill 285 receives a favorable report by a vote of 8 ayes and 0 nays.
All right, this bill has received a second reading to be placed on the calendar for next legislative day. This concludes committee reports. Now move on to motions and resolutions. Any motions or resolutions? All right, now move on to local bills. Secretary, call the first local bill.
On page 40 of the calendar, Senate Bill number 276 by Senator Gavan relating to Madison County. BIR pending.
Mr. President, I move the BIR using the long roll.
Okay, Secretary, call the long roll.
Mr. Albritton. Mr. Allen. Mr. Barfoot. Mr. Beasley. Mr. Bell. Mr. Butler. Mr. Carnley. Mr. Chambliss. Mr. Chasteen. Ms. Coleman. Ms. Coleman Madison. Mr. Elliott. Ms. Figures. Local bill. Mr. Gavan. Mr. Gudger. Mr. Hatcher. Mr. Hovey. Mr. Jones. Mr. Kelly. Mr. Livingston. Mr. Melson. Mr. Orr. Mr. Price. Mr. Reed. Mr. Roberts. Mr. Schofield. Mr. Sessions. Mr. Shelnut. Mr. Singleton. Mr. Smitherman. Mr. Stewart. Mr. Stutz. Mr. Wagner. Ms. Weaver. Mr. Williams.
32 ayes.
32 ayes, 0 nays. The BR is adopted. Secretary, call the bill.
On page 40 of the calendar, Senate Bill number 276 by Senator Gavan relating to Madison County.
Senator Gavan.
Oh, thank you, Mr. President. This bill is far from compendious, but it simply deletes an old, unused board that we have in Madison County. Madison County now uses a statewide board, so we're simply repealing irrelevant legislation, and I would move adoption using previous roll. There's no objection.
All right, any objection? Okay, hearing none, so ordered.
Mr. Albritton. Mr. Williams.
32 ayes, 0 nays. Senate Bill 276 passes. Thank you, Senator Gavan.
Thank you, Mr. President.
Secretary, call the next local bill.
On page 40 of the calendar, House Bill number 221 by Representative Shaver relating to Cherokee County. BR pending.
Mr. President, I move the BIR using the previous roll.
All right, any objection? Hearing none, so ordered.
Mr. Albritton. Mr. Williams.
32 ayes, 0 nays. The BR is adopted. Secretary, call the bill.
On page 40 of the calendar, House Bill number 221 by Representative Shaver relating to Cherokee County.
Mr. President, I move final passage using the previous roll.
All right, any objection? Hearing none, so ordered.
Mr. Albritton. Mr. Williams.
32 ayes, no nays. All right, 32 ayes, 0 nays. House Bill 221 passes. Thanks, Senator Chambliss. Secretary, call the next local bill.
On page 40 of the calendar, House Bill number 362 by Representative Robbins relating to Coosa County. BIR pending.
Mr. President, I move the BIR using the previous roll.
All right, any objection? Hearing none, so ordered.
Mr. Albritton. Mr. Williams.
32 ayes, 0 nays. The BR is adopted. Secretary, call the bill.
On page 40 of the calendar, House Bill number 362 by Representative Robbins relating to Coosa County.
Mr. President, I move final passage using the previous roll.
All right. Any objection? Hearing none, so ordered.
Mr. Albritton, Mr. Williams,
32 ayes, 0 nays. House Bill 362 passes. Secretary, call next local bill.
on page 41 of the calendar, House Bill number 236 by Representative Wood relating to Calhoun County. BIR pending.
130 something.
Mr. President, I move the BIR using the previous roll.
$1 million a school system if we did it that. All right.
BIR.
All right. Any objection? Hearing none, so ordered.
Mr. Albritton, Mr. Williams,
All right. 32 ayes, 0 nays. The BR is adopted. Secretary, call the bill.
on page 41 of the calendar, House Bill 236 by Representative Wood relating to Calhoun County.
Mr. President, I move final passage using the previous roll.
All right. Any objection? Hearing none, so ordered.
Mr. Albritton, Mr. Williams,
32 ayes, 0 nays. House Bill 236 passes. Secretary, call next local bill.
on page 41 of the calendar, House Bill 128 by Representative Wood relating to Calhoun County. BIR pending.
Mr. President, I move the BIR using the previous roll.
All right. Any objection? Hearing none, so ordered.
Mr. Albritton, Mr. Williams,
32 ayes, 0 nays. The BR is adopted. Secretary, call the bill.
on page 41 of the calendar, House Bill number 128 by Representative Wood relating to Calhoun County.
Mr. President, I move final passage using the previous roll.
All right. Any objection? Hearing none, so ordered.
Mr. Albritton, Mr. Williams,
32 ayes, 0 nays. House Bill 128 passes.
Thank you, Mr. President.
Secretary, call next local. All right. That concludes local bills. I'd like to recognize some special guests in the gallery. From Calhoun County Chamber of Commerce, Zach Davis, Jacob Williamson, and Jacob Bowers. If y'all could please stand. They're the guests of Senator Kelly. Welcome to Alabama Senate. All right, Senator Gavan.
Thank you, Mr. President. Having voted on the prevailing side of HB 266, I move that we reconsider this bill using previous roll.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right. We are reconsidering, what was the bill number?
266, HB 266.
All right. HB 266. All right.
House Bill 266 by Representative Almond.
All right, Senator Gavan.
At this point in time, I would move that we reconsider the floor amendment that was adopted yesterday. Having voted on the prevailing side.
All right, all those in favor say aye. I'm sorry, what now? No, we're not passing it. Okay. All right. Motion passes. All right, Senator Gavan.
So at this point in time, I would like to offer. Oh, I'm sorry, you're right. At this point in time, I would move that we table the floor amendment.
All right, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The floor amendment is now tabled. All right, Senator Gavan.
So if I may go ahead and just explain to Senator Smitherman, this is simply some words coming from ALI, and we used probate a will, and they wanted us to use, wills filed for probate. This is a hyper-technical legal probate lawyer change. I don't know the exact unique reasons for it, but it does not change the import of the bill. It's just some legalese that ALI wanted us to put in the amendment.
I want to ask you a lawyer question about the bill, but I want to ask you a lawyer question,
Okay.
and it may it may resonate to you. What different am I gonna have to do when in fact, I'm gonna make it laugh. I'm supposed to file one tomorrow, Friday. I got to finish it up this evening in the morning. So what's gonna be the difference when I file that will for probate tomorrow for my client?
None. It won't change how we probate wills. This changes how they are, when they're removed to circuit court. There was some confusion in what we did, I think, a year ago, maybe 2 years ago, on how to handle these appeals, because there was a lot of litigation coming out of it. Apparently, we didn't tighten that up enough, and this is what ALI did to tighten that up.
Well, let me say this. I understand fully what you just said, because I just went through a situation where it wasn't clear. Came out of probate, they appealed. I got it when they were getting ready to appeal. You know, I'm on the defendant side, but I got it at that point, and we had to have a hearing, an extensive hearing on what you just said to try to clear it up, that it should come there, you know. And when you get a chance, I'm gonna tell you this as a lawyer, it's one of the, I don't know the right word, but you do, and it's one of the setting cases that the Supreme Court published about the determination of a will and whatnot. That was my case, you know, but in that case, it was what you just said. I had to go through the whole thing. They appealed it. After the Supreme Court did, they came back and appealed on something else. I had to go back twice, you know, but you're right. Not confusion, but that what you're trying to correct started right there at the transfer of the case. As it moved, tried to go to circuit court, which it did. We tried it in circuit court as well. So I commend that part. I'm looking at Otten, and he over there smiling, doing like that. So I commend him for doing that. And I'll tell everybody in here, I got all the confidence in the world in the Alabama Law Institute. Those are lawyers from all over the state that get their minds together and try to sort out and make sure that things run smooth in that movement of these legal documents and things. So good job, and thank you.
Thank you, Senator. This time I'd like to offer a new amendment.
All right, Secretary Reed, receive the amendment, please.
Amendment to House Bill 266 by Senator Gavan. Replace line 25 on page 1 with the following. 2022 regular session, now appearing as sections 43.8.210, 43.8.213, and replace line 28 on page 1 with the following. Replace line 31 through 32 on page 2 with the following.
Mr. President, this time I'd like to move for adoption of the amendment using previous roll without objection.
All right, any objection? Hearing none, so ordered.
Mr. Albritton, Mr. Williams.
33 ayes, 0 nays. The Senator Gavan Amendment number 2 is adopted. Senator Gavan.
Thank you, Mr. President. So at this time, I will move for final passage of HB 266 as amended with using previous roll without objection.
All right, any objection? Hearing none, so ordered.
Mr. Albritton, Mr. Williams.
33 ayes, 0 nays. House Bill 266 passes. Thanks, Senator Gavan. All right, Senator Wagner.
Mr. President,
Senator Wagner.
I have a report from the Committee on Rules.
All right, Secretary Reed received the report from the Committee on Rules.
From the Committee on Rules, Senate Resolution Number 63, Special Order Calendar. Be it resolved that by the Senate that the following bills and the order names shall be a special paramount and continuing order of business taking precedence over all other matters until disposed of for the 18th legislative day only. On page 21, Senate Bill number 262 by Senator Beasley relating to the Education Trust Fund to Tuskegee University. On page 22, Senate Bill 93 by Senator Hovey relating to Southern Preparatory Academy. On page 23, Senate Bill 111 by Senator Bell relating to Talladega College. On page 24, Senate Bill 101 by Senator Orr, relating to appropriations. On page 29, Senate Bill 269 by Senator Orr, relating to education. On page 30, Senate Bill 278 by Senator Wagner, relating to education. On page 30, Senate Bill 267 by Senator Chasteen, relating to athletic trainers. On page 23, Senate Bill 85 by Senator Orr, relating to public education employees. On page 22, Senate Bill 86 by Senator Orr, relating to tax rebates. On page 24, Senate Bill number 88 by Senator Orr, relating to the Education Trust Fund. On page 25, Senate Bill 87 by Senator Orr, relating to the supplemental appropriation bill.
Mr. President,
Senator Wagner.
move that the Senate adopt the report from the Committee on Rules using the short roll call.
All right, any objection? Hearing none, so ordered.
Strawbritton. Mr. Williams.
33 ayes, 0 nays. The special order calendar is adopted. Secretary, call the first bill.
On page 21 of the calendar, Senate Bill 262 by Senator Beasley, relating to Tuskegee University. BIR pending.
Thank you, Mr. President. I think we had a substitute in the committee yesterday. I'd like to move for pass the substitute.
All right, let's first get the BIR, please.
Pass the BR.
Or would you like to use previous roll?
Use previous roll.
All right, any objection? Hearing none, so ordered.
Strawbritton. Mr. Williams.
33 ayes, 0 nays. The BR is adopted. Secretary, call the bill.
On page 21 of the calendar, Senate Bill 262 by Senator Beasley, relating to appropriations in education. Committee substitute pending.
I'd like to move passage of the substitute.
All right, would you like to use previous roll?
Use previous roll.
All right, any objection? Hearing none, so ordered.
Mr. Albritton. Mr. Williams.
33 ayes, 0 nays. The committee substitute's adopted. All right, Senator Beasley.
All right.
I'd like to move for final passage of the appropriation for Tuskegee University. Use the previous roll without objections.
All right, any objection? Hearing none, so ordered.
Strawbritton. Mr. Williams.
32 ayes, 0 nays, 1 abstention. Senate Bill 262 passes. Thanks, Senator Beasley.
Thank you.
All right, Secretary, call the next bill on the calendar.
On page 22 of the calendar, Senate Bill number 93 by Senator Hovey, relating to Southern Preparatory Academy. BR pending.
Mr. President,
Senator Hovey.
BR using previous roll.
All right, any objection? Hearing none, so ordered.
Strawbritton. Mr. Williams.
32 ayes, 0 nays, 1 abstention. The BR is adopted. Secretary, call the bill.
On page 22 of the calendar, Senate Bill number 93 by Senator Hovey, relating to Southern Preparatory Academy.
Mr. President, move for final passage using previous roll.
All right.
No objection.
Any objection? Hearing none, so ordered.
Strawbritton. Mr. Williams.
32 ayes, 0 nays, 1 abstention. Senate Bill 93 passes. Thanks, Senator Hovey. Secretary, call the next bill on the calendar.
On page 23 of the calendar, Senate Bill 111 by Senator Bell, relating to Talladega College. BIR pending.
Mr. President, motion to adopt BIR.
All right. Excuse me. Would you like to use previous roll? All right. Any objection? Hearing none, so ordered.
Strawbritton. Mr. Williams.
32 ayes, 0 nays, 1 abstention. The BR is adopted. Secretary, call the bill.
On page 23 of the calendar, Senate Bill number 111 by Senator Bell, relating to Talladega College.
Mr. President, motion final passage using previous roll.
All right. Any objection? Hearing none, so ordered.
Strawbritton. Mr. Williams.
32 ayes, no nays, 1 abstention.
32 ayes, 0 nays, 1 abstention. Senate Bill 111's passed. Thanks, Senator Bell. Secretary, call the next bill on the calendar.
On page 24 of the calendar, Senate Bill number 101 by Senator Orr, relating to appropriations. BR pending.
Mr. President,
Senator Orr.
I would move
adoption of the BIR using the previous roll.
All right, any objection? Hearing none, so ordered.
Mr. Albritton. Mr. Williams.
32 ayes, 0 nays, 1 abstention. The BR is adopted. Secretary, call the bill.
On page 23 of the calendar, Senate Bill number 101 by Senator Orr relating to appropriations. Committee amendment pending.
Mr. President,
Senator Orr.
I would move adoption of the committee amendment using the previous roll.
All right, any objection? Hearing none, so ordered.
Mr. Albritton. Mr. Williams.
32 ayes.
32 ayes, 0 nays, 1 abstention. The committee amendment's adopted. All right, Senator Orr.
Thank you, Mr. President. Members, this is the Rolling Reserve Amending Act, and what it'll do is hopefully stave off the situation that we've currently find ourselves in where we have such a large surplus because we didn't spend to the cap. We were trying to be conservative and have for several years. There was a lot of concern about COVID and what was going to happen to our economy, which means what's going to happen to our revenues. So we very conservatively chose to spend a lesser amount and not rely on our revenue projections as much and spend all the way everything that we could spend. So and then the cap, of course, has been higher, much higher than our spending. This would put a maximum spending amount that will settle in at the 5% range, where our year-over-year growth will be in the 5% range each year. Seeing no questions, Mr. President, I would move third reading on SB 101 using the previous roll.
All right, any objection? Hearing none, so ordered.
Mr. Albritton. Mr. Williams.
32 ayes, no nays.
32 ayes, 0 nays, 1 abstention. Senate Bill 101 passes. Thanks, Senator Orr. Secretary, call the next bill.
On page 29 of the calendar, Senate Bill number 269 by Senator Orr relating to education.
Mr. President,
Senator Orr.
I would move adoption of the BIR using the previous roll.
All right, any objection? Hearing none, so ordered.
Mr. Albritton. Mr. Williams.
33 ayes, no nays.
32 ayes, 0 nays, 1 abstention? Oh, I'm sorry, 33 ayes, 0 nays. The BR is adopted. Secretary, call the bill.
On page 29 of the calendar, Senate Bill number 269 by Senator Orr relating to education.
Mr. President.
Senator Orr.
This is the capital grant program that we discussed in committee yesterday. I do have an amendment I'd like to offer at this time.
All right, Secretary Reed received the amendment.
Amendment to Senate Bill 269 by Senator Orr. Replace line 54 on page 2 with the following.
So, members, this amendment allows for a 0.25% administrative fee to be used to administer the grant program, and I would move adoption of the amendment using the previous roll if there's no objection.
Mr. President.
All right, Senator Singleton.
Excuse me. So what I'm hearing you say, this amendment is for an administrative fee?
Yes, I have a copy here if you'd like.
Okay, just 1% of that would be utilized?
0.25%.
1/4 of 1%.
25
That's what I didn't hear. Okay, 1/4 of 1% will be used for administrative fee.
Correct. They're going to have to hire a staff person or two
Right,
to
exactly.
implement it.
I got you. Okay, that's what I understand. Thank you, Mr. President.
All right. Got a motion to adopt the amendment using previous roll. Any objection? All right, hearing none, so ordered.
Mr. Albritton. Mr. Williams.
33 ayes, 0 nays. The Senator Orr amendment's adopted. All right, Senator Orr.
Thank you, Mr. President. I think the gentlelady across the way has an amendment she'd like to offer.
All right, Senator Figures.
Mr. President, wait a minute. Did we just pass this bill?
No, we just passed an amendment. We're on the bill.
Okay, great. Mr. President, may I be recognized?
You're recognized.
Thank you. Mr. President, I have an amendment that I'd like to add to this bill. And as we talked about it in committee yesterday, there's $185 million that's going to be available for all of the schools in the state to apply for grants. And of course, it would be in your office, Mr. President. And I was trying to come up with a way that I felt all systems would be treated totally fairly and they would have an opportunity to apply for those grants. So I came up with a formula that we should divide it per capita of the number of students in each district, in each system rather, and then each system would have a deadline in order to apply for those funds. And once that deadline passed and there was money left over from the money that had been allotted to that system, it would go back into the general pool of the money. And then in that way, every system will have been treated the same. They would have been treated fairly, and the money would have been dispersed evenly per capita, per student. So with that, I'd like to offer this amendment unless there are any questions regarding the amendment. And let me just say this too, and I told I said this in committee meeting, I would have the same concerns from just one person making those decisions, even if it was a Democrat sitting in the lieutenant governor's seat. And one thing is that because the current lieutenant governor has the heart to be fair and has given us his commitment that he would work with us individually, I believe that. But God forbid, I mean, we don't know the day or the hour that we might be called home. I mean, I'm a living witness of that with my late husband, Michael Figures. So you don't know who the next person is going to be in that position, perhaps, but they wouldn't have the same heart, perhaps. So that's why I came up with this formula. And like I said, it would be a deadline date that they would have to apply. And if they didn't apply by that deadline date, the money would go back into the general pool under the lieutenant governor making the decisions as to who would get it. So, Senator Melson.
Would you yield for just a question or statement? But
All right, first, we need to get the amendment. Secretary Reed received the amendment.
I'm sorry.
Amendment to Senate Bill 269 by Senator Figures. Replace line 47 on page 2 with the following. Section 2, there is a hereby created in Alabama K through 12. Replace line 61 on page 3 with the following. Replace lines 116 through 117 on page 5 with the following.
And also, not only just the school systems, but it would also take into consideration the cyberspace school, the School of Math and Science, as well as the School of Fine Arts in Birmingham. Like I say, I mean, we could vote it up or vote it down. It was just my way. And I told Lieutenant Governor, God knows, it has nothing to do with him personally.
Senator Melson.
Mr. President, I would just have concerns on about some of the smallest systems have the most needs.
Right.
Because they don't have a tax base, like Lawrence County. That's not my district, but I hear from them all the time, is they've lost their tissue plant or their paper plant, the largest provider of tax base. So I think that we're setting up that there's going to be a lot of the systems with the most needs being overlooked. So I appreciate your thought. I'm just going to have to trust the Lieutenant Governor to do the fair and right thing, which I think he will. So
Right, and Senator, and I appreciate that. And I did not. I mean, in my mind, all systems have, large numbers of children. But as I was talking to Senator Singleton as well, you know, that was his problem too. So I said, well, I'm not going to do it. I'm like, no, go on and do it. No, you know, so I did. But, and you know, my heart is always to make sure no one is left out. And I do feel that those areas where there's low poverty, where there's not a lot of local revenue that they can support their school systems, that this would be a great opportunity for them too. So with that, I will withdraw this amendment, Mr. President.
Okay.
Withdraw.
Senator Orr.
You going to withdraw?
Yes, I said I will withdraw the amendment.
All right, any objection? Hearing none, so ordered. The Senator Figurs amendment's withdrawn. All right, thanks, Senator Figurs.
Thank you,
All right.
Governor, and I'm trusting you I know you'll do the right thing. Thank you, and I
Thank
look
you,
forward to
Senator
working with you.
I want to thank the Senator from Mobile for, you know, certainly bringing that to light. We do have $360 million that'll go per the formula. And here's the reason I think doing it some amount of money, $185 million, is important. Two reasons. One, it gives us flexibility over a formula. And secondly, and this is the more important point, it will allow those rural regions maybe to get a little bit more help. And the reason I say that, let's take Mobile, you've got 3 senators that cover part, and you cover a lot of it as well. And then you've got some counties, they just got 1 senator and 1 House member, and that's it. And you would see, if we did the formula, concentration again in the urban areas, and they get a lot of tax money from the county folks that come in to the store, and spend their money. And so the city school systems are able to collect a good bit of money that go to those city systems.
Right.
I know Mobile County will be in a county.
And that's what I said.
So
yeah.
that's the reason, we hope, of course, urban areas will be eligible, but this would maybe get money out to the more rural areas where they don't have that tax base and that capability.
Absolutely. And with that, Senator, I would hope that we would give priority to those areas in the state that are just trying to get their buildings up to code, or to a point where it truly is conducive for learning, where the roofs are not leaking, before we give money to somebody to build a new building, if you will. Because this is for maintenance, deferred maintenance, and all of that. So I'm really hoping we can give priority to that. And Mobile doesn't have any of those. So, like I said, I don't want any child to be left behind. And that's my whole point.
Thank you, Senator.
Literally. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thanks, Senator Figurs. Senator Orr.
I would move third reading using the previous rule, Mr. President.
All right, any objection? Hearing none, so ordered.
Strawbritton. Mr. Williams.
34 ayes, 0 nays. Senate Bill 269 passes. Thanks, Senator Orr. Secretary, call the next bill.
On page 30 of the calendar, Senate Bill number 278 by Senator Wagner relating to education. BR pending.
Mr. President.
Senator Wagner.
Move adoption of the BR using the short roll.
All right, any objection? Hearing none, so ordered.
Strawbritton. Mr. Williams.
33 ayes, 1 nay. 33 ayes, 0 nays, 1 abstention. The BR is adopted. Secretary, call the bill.
Page 29 of the calendar, Senate Bill 278 by Senator Wagner relating to education.
All right, Senator Wagner, real quick.
Mr. President, members, this is the bill that pertains to saving Birmingham Southern College. This college is over 100 years old. It sits on a campus in West Birmingham of probably 200 acres. Many, many people in Alabama and all over the country have attended Birmingham Southern, and I'm one of them, probably the only Birmingham Southern alumni in the Senate. But several years ago, they fell on some hard times, and this is a bill to help them survive. It's a great institution, and this is a bill that hopefully will protect them for the years to come. I want to thank Senator Orr for coming up with this idea, and Representative Garrett for coming up with a bill that hopefully will save Birmingham Southern College. This bill came out of the Education Budget Committee without any discussion. It was unanimous, and hopefully that'll be the indication in the Senate body in support of saving Birmingham Southern. What it does, it creates a distressed institutions of higher education reviving loan program. And I think this is the instrument, the law that we need to save Birmingham Southern College. And if there's no questions or anybody to ask any questions, I move to give the bill third reading, reading at length be dispensed with, and ask for the ayes and noes.
Ask this and then talk.
All right, did y'all want to speak on this?
Yeah.
Real quick, want to recognize some special guests in the gallery before we get on this. The guest of Senator Carnley, the Opp High School cheer team. If y'all could please stand. They are the 3A state champs and the UCA national champs. Congratulations and welcome to the Alabama Senate. All right, Senator Coleman Madison.
Thank you, Mr. President. Senator Wagner, would you mind other senators being added to this bill to support?
Excuse me.
Do that.
What was your question?
Can other senators be added to the bill?
No, look at the speaker. Look at him.
Let me get a ruling from the desk, Mr. Smitherman.
He's ruling. But you rule. Can we get a
Mr. President?
point of order?
Yeah, Senator Orr.
Let me explain, Senator. The bill is not specific to any university.
I'm not asking about that. I'm just saying, can other senators be added to it as far as that we all support?
So,
Co-signers.
Secretary says we cannot do that. so-
Okay, we
Yeah.
just want to make sure that the chiefs get all the credit.
I do know a little something.
Mr. President.
Yeah, Senator Stutz.
Senator Wagner, I just had a question about it. What is the...
All right. Senator Stutz. Yeah, Senator Wagner's having a hard time hearing on this discussion. If y'all could keep it down, please. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. President. What are the general terms of the loan and how long, and will and I know it's not specific to Birmingham Southern, but I mean, I assume that's going to be the first loan out of this fund. And will the state have a mortgage on the property? Will they have first mortgage, second mortgage? How is all that going to work?
This comes under the auspices of the state treasurer, who will set the rules and the regulations. So a lot of the responsibility is going to be in the office of the state treasurer to make these decisions. At this point, I don't think they've gone that far, but.
So this is just establishing the possibility of doing it.
This is true.
Under those, and they'll work out the details.
That's right.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, sir.
All right, I got a motion to adopt. Did you want to speak, Senator Roberts?
Sir, Mr. President.
All right, you're recognized.
Senator Wagner,
Yes, sir.
one more notch on the belt of major things that you've done to benefit our state. Kudos, sir.
Thank you, Senator. Thank you.
All right, anyone else? Senator Smitherman.
I didn't, but since we're in this posture, I just wanted to say thank you, Senator, for your work.
Yes, sir.
I know we
Thank
work
you.
together. Yes, sir. But I wanted to also tell you thank you for everything you've done. I mean that sincerely. With that, I yield back to him.
All right, we got a motion to adopt using the previous roll. Any objection? Hearing none, so ordered.
Straw Britton. Mr. Williams.
33 ayes, 0 nays, 1 abstention. Senate Bill 278 passes.
Thank you, members.
Thanks, Senator Wagner. Secretary, call the next bill.
On page 30 of the calendar, Senate Bill 267 by Senator Chasteen relating to athletic trainers. BR pending.
Senator Chasteen.
I'd like to move for BR, use the previous roll.
All right, any objection? Hearing none, so ordered.
Straw Britton. Mr. Williams.
33 ayes, 0 nays, 1 abstention. The BR is adopted. Secretary, call the bill.
On page 30 of the calendar, Senate Bill 267 by Senator Chasteen relating to athletic trainers. Committee amendment pending.
Senator Chastain.
Well, I don't have my amendment right now. I need to try to get my amendment. Okay.
We're just adopting the committee amendment?
Yeah, let's move to adopt the committee amendment.
Would that use previous role?
Using previous role.
All right, any objection? Hearing none, so ordered.
Mr. Albritton, Mr. Williams.
34 ayes, no nays.
34 ayes, 0 nays. The committee amendment's adopted.
Okay.
Senator Chastain.
What this bill does, it creates a grant program for 1A, 2A, and 3A schools and Title I schools that would provide stipends for athletic trainers in these schools. No further questions. I move for final passage.
All right, Senator Smitherman.
I just wanted to commend you, Coach.
Yes, sir.
You know, from one coach to the other, you're absolutely right. Those schools, and I hope as we come back next year, if the chairman sees that the funds are available, we can move up to 4 and 5 and 6A. You know, those schools, they may not need the kind of assistance those schools you're talking about need, but maybe we can look at them and see if they can move up in that realm as well. But you would be commended. I went to a 2A school, 3A school. I went to Monte Valley High School, and I can just tell you, they don't have the resources to have those trainers, and you got to have those trainers there. I was the trainer for the football team for 3.5 years. They sent me to school to learn how to wrap up and set bones and do all of that. So you had to take a student to send me to school to come back to do that because they didn't have anybody else they could afford from a person of the caliber you're trying to get there. So you'll be commended, and I fully support you in this.
Thanks, Senator, and I appreciate the budget chair working with us on this, and that's the plan, is that we get it implemented, and as the program continues to grow, hopefully we can continue to increase some funding to that. But I appreciate your comments.
All right, renew your motion, I believe. Is that right?
Sorry?
You had a motion on this to approve using previous role. Is that correct?
Yes.
All right, any objection? Hearing none, so ordered.
Mr. Albritton, Mr. Williams.
34 ayes, 0 nays. Senate Bill 267 passes. Thank you, Senator Chastain.
Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Coach Smitherman. So, all right, Secretary, call the next bill.
On page 23 of the calendar, Senate Bill number 85 by Senator Orr relating to public education employees.
All right, Senator Orr.
Thank you, Mr. President. Move adoption of the BIR using previous role.
All right, any objection? Hearing none, so ordered.
Mr. Albritton, Mr. Williams.
34 ayes, 0 nays. The BR is adopted. Secretary, call the bill.
On page 23 of the calendar, Senate Bill number 85 by Senator Orr relating to public education employees.
Senator Orr.
Thank you, Mr. President. I did not know the gentleman across the way was a doctor. You know, I don't know if he had a license to practice medicine or whatever he's doing, setting bones and wrapping shins. Another talent that you got. Folks, this is a pay raise that is part of the budget package for all education employees. I would move third reading using the previous role, Mr. President.
All right, any objection? Hearing none, so ordered.
Mr. Albritton, Mr. Williams.
34 ayes, 0 nays. Senate Bill 85 passes. Secretary, call the next bill.
On page 22 of the calendar, Senate Bill number 86 by Senator Orr relating to appropriations. BR pending.
Mr. President.
Senator Orr.
Move adoption of the BIR using the previous role.
All right, any objection? Hearing none, so ordered.
Mr. Albritton, Mr. Williams.
35 ayes, 0 nays. The BR is adopted. Secretary, call the bill.
On page 22 of the calendar, Senate Bill number 86 by Senator Orr relating to appropriations. Committee substitute pending.
Mr. President, I'd move adoption of the committee substitute using the previous role.
All right, any objection? Hearing none, so ordered.
Mr. Albritton, Mr. Williams.
35 ayes, 0 nays. The committee substitute's adopted. All right, Senator Orr.
This is the rebate bill. It came across the street at $900+ million. The committee took action yesterday to reduce that amount to $275 million, which would mean a little over $100 per recipient. And I would yield for questions or
So this is, we're about to send $100 per taxpayer out,
Tax filer, yes.
tax filer. By the time we print the check, it's gonna be worth about 90 cents, about $90 to everybody.
I wouldn't say it's going to be that bad. Inflation's dropping, so that's a good thing.
You know, I'm for people being able to get in because families are suffering. But I think I could think about a whole lot of more things that I could do with this money. I got infrastructure issues out here. You know, I got schools that are basically leaking, with ceilings that are leaking and things that's going on that haven't been built since the 1940s. I know we did a capital project and inflation hit half of it. Most of our schools can't even do it. And I know you tried to make up in some of the pieces with some of that. I'm not against people, and I know families are hurting. Let me say that to all of y'all who looking for the check. I'm not against it. But I do think that we need to, in the spirit of what we've been doing with all of the ARPA funds, we've been calling it investments. And we've been investing in the future and the infrastructure of Alabama so that we can continue to grow in infrastructure and be strong, so we can be able to invite industry in, so that we can be able to get people to stay in our state, to be able to retain and recruit talent in our state by investing in the infrastructure. And this says to me that I think that we're kind of short-sighted. Federal government sent out $1,400 check, they sent out some $1,600, $1,200 checks, but they print money. We don't. And
good point.
And so when it was at the $400 level, I was okay because I thought it could help a family at some point. Even $400 was on my line, but $100 going out to a family, I'm sure somebody will be all right with it, but the average person's gonna say, heck, they sent me this for. We create a tax problem for the taxpayer. Are we going to turn around and forgive the tax on that $100+ to people? Because it's...
My understanding is it is a tax-free event.
It's going to be a tax-free event?
That's my understanding. You can check me out. Other states have done this, sent rebate checks back, and the IRS has determined that it's a tax-free event.
Okay. It's a non-taxable event, so...
That's my understanding.
You know, I was straddling the fence already on rebates, even at the $400 level. Now I really think that my feet is on solid ground of no rebate just for $100. I think it's an insult to do that.
I'll take your $100, Senator.
And you can have it.
Okay.
Because I know I have a school right now where it's leaking in the school, or let me say, I have a school right now where kids haven't been able to go because gas line keep busting, or they're having to fix dig problems is going to the school, or it's leaking in one of my schools, or because we don't have local money to do those extra things in terms of maintenance. We're doing deferred maintenance for colleges and universities, but no deferred maintenance on our schools, for our K through 12 schools. This money could be used for some of that to help folks fix a roof, and we're taking the A&T fund away based on what they were used to, because that money is not being appropriated in these budgets this time, to where they were able to do a little something with it.
Let me jump in there on that one, if you don't mind.
Yes.
Okay. So the $360 million that's going out to K-12 per the formula, we're using the PSCA formula, but when the money hits the schools, they can spend it as if it were A&T money.
Okay.
So they'll have, I got calls about SROs, that they were using A&T money for school security and things like that, which is allowed. It says school security in the law. I didn't know that they're not supposed to hire people, but we were thinking metal detectors and hardware kind of things. But anyway, they can spend it like A&T money, and it'll be a healthy slug coming out to them.
Right, because, you know, in the past, the only money that some of the schools had to free up was OCE money. And so
there's a big increase in OCE that we've got this year.
Thank you very much for doing that. And because a lot of these Title I schools, you know, if they don't get some of the title money, they don't have any extra money. Because we use most of our money for our 10 meals to participate in the foundation program. Because if I file for a tax tomorrow, I got these big corporations out there telling me no taxes for school, but every time I look up, they want a rebate on everything they get in here. They want to pay no taxes on anything inside these hallways. I have a problem with that. And so, but I'm looking at this rebate, and I'm not here to try to kill it. I just want to voice my opinion about it. While I support rebates and I'm okay with people's families, but I want it to be worth something that they could use. I know every dollar means something to everybody. Now $100 is probably going to be a lot to someone else, you know, to a struggling family who probably need that $100 to help pay that light bill that month, or it may come in right on time for somebody. But I also think that if I could fix that roof at that school, it helps a generation of somebody's. It helps a generation of children. It helps families to be able to say that they're comfortable that now my child can read by 3rd grade because they ain't sitting up there with a coat on being cold in the classroom because they got new windows in, because the money that we was going to get for that $100 rebate, I could stretch that dollar and help put some new windows in a school system that's poor and needed. And I know that we're talking about we got other dollars to do that, but we could have added this on top of that for an investment. This is not an investment. This is a giveaway. And I thought that we were more about doing investments with these federal and state dollars than we are talking about doing giveaways. And so while I am for that in theory, but in this particular practice, you know, I'm not sure where I want to stand on this one, Mr. Senator from North Alabama. This is a hard one for me because I think in my young Senate days, I'd have been right here. I think I've matured enough in this body to understand this process and how it works, see what dollars are, see what our numbers are, even while we got a lot of money up here on the top. And you know, I understand, I used to be against rainy day funds and things of that nature because I thought it was, we got all this money, how can we spend it? People got all these needs, but we still got to function in the future. And do we take this money, is this a wise, and I'm going back to that word again, is it a wise investment? And so, in the theme that we went out with all of the federal opera dollars was we were investing. And then now we turn around and we want to do a giveaway instead of investing money to where we can have a long-term effect on our children. We got, as I've been telling you about, we have schools that need to be turned around. I know we got a $10 million pot for schools, but I think that we need more. We got schools that are failing and that we need to make sure that we can get quality paid teachers into some of these school systems that's hard to recruit in. More professional development and making sure that we get our teachers up to snuff to be able to teach our children to deal with, you know, because the way these matrices are set up, I might not qualify based on my average daily attendance. I might not qualify but a half an English teacher. But if I don't have local money to be able to pay for the full, all of my kids don't get the benefit of that English class. And we need that as a core subject to be able to do these testing, or a math teacher. And now we're saying that every child must have math literacy by 3rd grade or they may fail, or reading literacy by 3rd grade, they may fail. If we don't have that in our school system, for especially these school systems that can't afford it, then we're looking at failing kids. And we're helping them to fail. We're making them while we're giving away how much, 900 and how many million?
On the rebate?
This $275 million. Can you drop all that in my bank account? Then we can talk. Then we can talk, Mr. Orr. You know, at $400, I was okay, and I was still straddling the fence there. And I know that was a number just thrown out, and we didn't know exactly what that was. I guess if we had used $1 billion of those dollars, it would have come out to that, you know, for what was first proposed. And it's okay, $400, folks get it, groceries up high, people could, you know, do that. But all of it's just gonna be a one-time spend. Nobody gonna save that money or do anything. Once they catch it, it's gone. But the investment that we could do with that money would be around for generations. And that's all I want to say, Mr. Chairman, is that in the spirit of the investment, I hope that we can get back to investing money versus just giving it away. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Thanks, Senator Singleton. Senator Figures.
Thank you, Mr. President. Chairman Orr, whose idea was this?
Well, let's go back probably September of last year. And I know I brought it up to somebody. In my mind, Senator, we had a one-time surplus. It's about the time the word about the surplus became public knowledge. And people were asking, what are you going to do with all that money? At the time, I said, well, we ought to consider rebating some of it because it's a one-time phenomenon, and therefore we ought to do a one-time return of the money. What level, you know, I don't really know, to be determined, and who the universe would be. Is it tax filers? Is it taxpayers? Is it everybody? You know, all to be determined. But my concern at the time was if you were talking about a large wholesale tax cut, which would be a permanent impact on school revenues, which wouldn't be a one-time event because every year thereafter that would be revenue gone. And as you know, we're in the second lowest per capita, I think, tax state in the country. And so if there was an appetite to address the surplus with returning money to me, a rebate program, and obviously Governor Ivey, maybe on her own, I don't know, but you know, thought enough of this to include it in her package to send over here. You know, since that time, the evolution or the thinking has changed a lot. People, I think, even the senator from West Alabama said, you know, he'd start thinking more about it and reconsidering, is this, you know, do we want to do 400? Do we want to invest? You know, other options on the table. But again, for me, back in the day, back when we started talking about surplus, it seemed like a prudent response to a one-time revenue surplus with a one-time rebate.
So the people who even got a refund when they filed taxes will be getting this $100 as well, because this is supposed to go to only people who file.
Yes, that's how the bill came from across the street, is the filers. And you know, a lot of people file, but they don't have a tax obligation. They may not have a tax, for multiple reasons, may file a tax return.
So, other than the feel-good part of it, saying we got a surplus, so we're gonna give some back, how is it helping those who need the help most, particularly in this time of high prices and the inflation? And as you know, the interest rate went up again yesterday, I think, what, 0.25?
Quarter. Yeah.
Yeah, 0.25%. So, I mean, in light of all of that, I would think that if we're going to be taking any kind of surplus money, it would be trying to help families. I know in Connecticut, when I was at the University of New Haven back in the late 70s, they do not have any grocery tax, grocery sales tax, nor do they even charge people tax on children's clothes. And that's their way of trying to help growing families or whatever. Couldn't we have done something other? Because what is the fiscal note on this? Even if we had taken 0.25% off of the grocery tax or something.
Okay, your question's what's 0.25 cent on the grocery tax?
No, I was just throwing that out. If we could have taken our grocery tax like from 4% to 3.75% and use this money for that, and I know that would have been a permanent thing, but what is the fiscal note on this bill?
$275 million.
Ooh, $275 million. I just think that could have been better spent where more people would truly be helped, because a lot of the people who are going to be getting this $100 back, they really don't need it. And like I said, some of them are going to get it where they haven't paid any taxes. Others are going to be getting it where they have already gotten a refund. And then you're going to have millionaires, multimillionaires, and the six-figure folk getting it back too. And I think it would have been of more help to people who are having to buy cheaper type groceries that may be less healthy for their families had we gone another way. But I just wanted to know how it originated.
Yeah, I think also part of the thinking is that the money, and I know you know this, but the money comes from the people, and this was a way to give back to the people that sent it to us in the first place. It originates with the people all across this state.
But see, a rebate is when you've already paid something and you're giving them part of their money back. And many people who haven't will be getting this as well. But thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thanks, Senator Figures. All right, Senator Coleman Madison, do you want to speak?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
You're recognized.
Thank you. Senator Orr, how much total this money estimate is going to be?
This is $275 million, the substitute.
$275 million. You know, Senator Orr, normally my side of the group would be really up and supporting this. It would seem like it would be a reversal. But my concern is that we are talking about a one-time tax rebate of $100. First of all, the bill mentions qualified taxpayer. It doesn't define qualified taxpayer in the bill.
My understanding, it's someone who has filed a tax return.
Okay, but there are a lot of, and again, I'm piggybacking on Senator Figures' comments, so that, there are a lot of people that are basically poor, kind of under that radar, that don't make enough to even file. If people don't make enough to file, these are really the people who really need.
And let me, in Alabama, the threshold for filing is $500. And so, we had a bill that came through committee that I sponsored, and to eliminate the low threshold. So, as I said, for state tax return, $500 is when the tax code starts kicking in on people to file. So it's pretty low. I'd love to blow that up.
Well, you look at state employees who won't get retired state employees. They won't get this tax benefit. But at the same time, the rich person who has gotten the threshold, what's $100 to them? These are the kinds of people that will be getting it. I will get back the $100. I would gladly give it up. But, I can tell you a better use for it. A little bill I had called a housing trust fund that was set up earlier. It is already in place. And if we look at our state, throughout our state, we've had disasters from one end of the state to the other, where homes have been destroyed. And it seems like this is, the 100-year flood is not 100 years anymore. It's happening quite often. But tornadoes happen every year. And each and every year, we have more and more homes that are being destroyed. People are being displaced. In addition to the fact that there's already a shortage of affordable housing in Alabama. The other thing is that we don't have in place anything to help people who need down payment assistance. Now, for me, this would have been a better use of putting this money in a fund like that, statewide, that everybody would have been able to benefit from. I understand your intent, or the governor's intent of wanting to do this, but I can hear some of my church members as I go back and tell them, and they say, well, did y'all bring back anything? And I said, well, y'all can expect $100 one time. I mean, I'm Catholic, and probably down there praying they'll be cussing me out. But it's going to be one of those things that I just don't think that this is going to really help people with everything that has gone up. It mentions in the bill about helping because of the cost of groceries has gone up. $100 doesn't help. You've gone to the store with $100 to buy groceries? You come out with one bag. You could not begin to feed a family of 4. You just couldn't do it. You may be able to take them to McDonald's. If you got a family of 4, you may be able to take them to McDonald's, and by the time you get everybody there, you're going to spend a little bit more than half of that right there. I share Senator Singleton's original comments of the fact that this is not enough if we're talking about helping people. And the point that I have is that it's not going to go to the people that we really want to help. If we say that this is to help working poor families, it's not going to help working poor families, because there are so many people that are going to be excluded. They are not going to get it. The people who are going to get it definitely are the people who file taxes like I do. And I'm going to be getting back to $100. I really would hope that we would hold off on this and look at trying to redirect this into something like the Housing Trust Fund, or in some type of fund that would really help people.
Right. So, I think this is important to understand when we get to the budget. Most of what was, and Senator from West Alabama kind of brought this up too, about the amount. Most of the money from the rebate that we're not rebating now from the original proposal, $500 million is going into a savings account. So that's where we're going to put the rebate money to take care of future needs, particularly because we're concerned about the future of the economy, and we have a lot of programs that we need to keep funding, such as the Numeracy Act, the Literacy Act, the teacher matrix that we put in place next year.
It still doesn't address the issue that I have with housing.
I understand.
Which everybody needs a roof over their head.
I'm just telling you where most of the rebate money went is into a savings account. And we'll have that. We passed that bill, the rolling reserve, that establishes the savings account. And so now we'll have...
So is it that we just have this money left over, $275 million, and we just figure that, okay, well, we got to do something with it? But is this really the answer? There are so many needs in our state. I mean, we can look at, this is the good times. Really, it is the good times for Alabama. It's the best that I've ever seen since I've been down here. As long as I've been down here 20-some years, this is the best that I have seen it as far as funding. And we can say whatever negative things we want to say about the federal government, but thank God for the federal government, because had it not been for them, this is not money that came from the state. It came from federal government that we are trying to do something with. But I still caution us. It's not going to last, and we know this. You know this better than most people. It's not going to last. I would like to see us use this money to build a foundation so that we can build on it, and for year after year we'll have something in place that we can really help people. Giving me a fish every day is not helping me. We know that parable. This is giving everybody, you get a fish, you get a fish, you get a fish. Everybody gets a fish. Tomorrow, I'm going to come back. You're going to give me a fish tomorrow? You're going to give me a fish next week? That's what this does. To give everybody 100, only people who qualify, and that's if you pay. But you are still missing the poor who still didn't get any fish and manna. This doesn't provide that. This sets up a system where we are going to make people, first of all, the expectation is going to be there. And I had that issue with the federal money that came down and they gave checks out to everybody because for a lot of folks, those checks didn't go to things that folks, if you got a mortgage, you know, you're behind, you pay that off. If you catch up on your debts, a lot of folks didn't do that with their money. There were long lines outside of stores. But all I'm saying is that this is not the answer, and $275 million is too much money to just throw to the wind, giving everybody a fish, and tomorrow I'm still hungry. This is not the answer. And I'm really hoping that we will carry this over, find another use for this money so that we can really help people. This is not helping people. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thanks, Senator. I'd like to recognize some special guests in the gallery. When I call your name, if you could please stand. Ms. Hadaway's class from Kinston Elementary School. Also, I'd like to point out guest of Senator Carnley, but we have a special guest, Madison Chastain. That's the granddaughter of Senator Chastain. If y'all could please stand. Welcome to Alabama Senate. All right, Senator Singleton.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm back. I know this thing look like it's reversed, right? Because this is usually the conservative arguments that we're making, and usually I would be standing over there making that argument for rebates. I understand. But I think that what we're trying to say is what we think is common sense. There's a lot of needs that I know that's in my communities, and I know that as the senator from Jefferson who just left here talked about those retirees who will work all of their lives, have retired, and through the retirement system, they don't have to pay an income tax on their money, so therefore they're not tax filers, they won't get anything. That class of people we rule out. Then when we look at the ultra-rich folks.
Yeah, if I may, if they have other sources of income, though,
understand.
then
They may do that,
filers.
right.
If they did the RSA 1 and they got some income that way, they would be a filer.
So let's talk about 5% of those people may end up doing that or more, okay? And so then you got those people who are in the upper income level who makes a filing, who has a great tax attorney, and who they pay no tax or very little tax based on the income that they make, and they're gonna get $100+ check. And as I say, the folks who are on food stamp welfare and getting other public assistance who don't pay, who may need it, won't get a check. And so unless they have somebody have another side gig, you know, or something that they're filing, they gotta be a filer. So we're really minimizing this to that group of folks who file, the income levels up there, because they got a job they go to every day. I can't say they don't need it, because I don't know what people's needs are. But again, in the spirit of investments, I would think that, you know, what really have me standing here, Senator, is because I was at the hospital just the other day with my aunt. And there was some of my aunt friends who was around, and they asked me about the rebate and the check. And you know what their general consensus was? People don't need that rebate. We need to put that money somewhere else to where it matters. And I stood there because I thought that this would probably be some of the folk who would want the check. You know what I'm saying? But here are people who are telling me that I thought that may want the check, will be okay with it, would say, we need to be putting this money somewhere else. So I'm glad to know that there was at least some forethought to at least take some of this money and put it back to where we can invest it to have for our children. But at the end of the day, I think that, you know, not only this piece, I think I can go through here and find out a lot of other things in this that's in here that I think that is unrelated educationally, based on these education dollars, that we could use this money to really fix some schools, to really do some stuff that could probably bring us up to #1. See, because I think to be #1, you got to do those things to be #1. You can't keep doing number 49 and 50 things and expect to be number one. You got to see what number one is doing and say, let me see what number ones are doing, and let's do what they're doing and see, can we at least model the number ones, and can we get close to their results? You can't be number one doing number 50 things. And I think that that's what we are doing sometime in the state. We want to be in that number, but we don't want to do the things to get over that threshold to be number one. I sometimes think we'd be scared to be number one in this state. I think we sometimes like being at the back of the line, you know, because we don't do the things that it takes to catapult ourselves to that next level, such as give schools the freedom to teach. Instead of locking everybody in, and then they got to go and apply for the ability to have flexibility. It makes no sense to me when school systems don't already have flexibility to be able to do to do the teaching, and so to be able to get kids to where they need to be. And so I just think that there's a lot of things that we need to do to think through this, and this rebate was not one of the better ones that we could think of, because what we're saying to taxpayers, out of $2.8 billion, I'm gonna give you $100. I'm gonna give y'all $100 back. Out of your taxpayer money, you'll get $100 back. And so, and the average taxpayer gonna say, man, because they're gonna be pissed because of the fact that because the word is on the street, this is gonna be $400. Folks have already started counting that $400. Man, I get that $400 check, I might be able to pay this off, or I might be able to do this with it, or I might be able to help buy some groceries or do some things like that, or something for my child that they wanted, and I can help them get it if I get this rebate check. Anticipation. And the reality is now we're talking about maybe $100, $150?
$105.
$105? We don't even get $110. We don't even get,
If you're married, it'll be $210.
My Lord. If you're married, you get $210.
Yeah, you and your spouse, for two.
And if you're filing head of household with qualified children, still get $110.
Yeah.
$105.
So it depends on your spouse filed theirs, then they get the
Right. And so, if I'm an independent trucker, if I'm out there and I just ran off and one of my tires just blew off, and I can say, ooh, they send that $400 rebate check, I could buy a tire with that $400. When I look up at anybody $100, I can't get the air to go in it.
Like you heard me with the senator from Jefferson County, you know, most of the rebate dollars, the difference, are going into the savings account.
And I applaud you for that.
That's, you know, I think we'll be glad we have that savings account when, if and when the economy cycles down and our revenues flat. You know, I don't know if you were in committee yesterday when, I know you were there, but
I did come a little late.
It was at the beginning or somewhere in there. I shared the numbers, and I was going to do this when we got to the budget, but the numbers as far as our revenues. So if you go to October 1st of 2022, come through April 30th of 2023, our revenue, and then take the same period a year prior and compare those 7 months that started October 1st, 2021, that prior year, 7 months compared to this 7 months that just ended a few days ago, our revenues are down for that same period of time. We're negative. So the economy is leveling off. That's with income taxes is leveling off, and so we need to be careful, and that's the reason, again, for the savings account and the decrease in the rebate amount.
Well, you know, we've been propped up. I mean, we've been blessed. We got, almost some 50-some-odd billion dollars in this state in those 3 years of COVID, you know, in this state. All these other agencies, not just necessarily for us as a legislature to appropriate, but through all the other agencies, health departments, DHR, Medicaid, everybody got all this money coming in, equal out to about 50-some-odd billion dollars that came into our state. We've been propped up by the federal government on some of this one-time money.
We're going to be really in a world of hurt not this coming year so much, but the next year, where all our local school districts have been spending that federal money.
Right.
And they went out and hired a bunch of people, maybe good, coaches, coach math or reading or whatever. And the federal money goes bye-bye. They're going to be coming where? Here.
They're going to come here.
And even though we've told them, we've warned them, be careful, because we may not have the money to pick up that federal dollar that's going away. And if you don't have a local plan to fund it, we may not be able to take that burden on and with all that we have. So that's another real concern, and we'll be right back here planning that budget. And your superintendents, you got a big area and a lot of superintendents, they'll be calling and saying, oh, we need help, Senator, we need help.
But Senator, my old granddaddy used to say all the time, it's hard to send lunch by a hungry man. It's hard to send lunch by a hungry man. He'll eat it up every time. Okay? You can't just send your lunch by a hungry man. And so that's what the federal government did, was gave lunch to the hungry man. School system was hungry. They were needing. They felt that, those that were in need felt that here's some money, we got to this, and this is an opportunity to pile on and do what we need to do to catch up, to get to where we need to be. They were hungry. And that's what happened. And so you're right. Now those days are coming to where, it's scaling down and there's no more food in the cupboard to send. And the cupboard is going to be bare. And so there won't be no more lunch to send. And so we're going to have to go back and depend on the pool that we've been scraping at the bottom from and wanting that pool to take care. And it's going to be our obligation to do that. And I'm hoping that this economy doesn't turn as hard as we may think it's going to turn. I think it's going to have a turn because there's so much money been flowing through this economy. And I think it has no other way but to bottleneck up, and it's going to make that proverbial turn, and that we're not going to be looking for, and hopefully that we can get past this. But the day that those superintendents do come, we're going to have to answer that question for them, because the need is going to be there. The need is going to be great, and we're going to have to make sure that those children are still educated, that they still have the ability to be able to graduate from an accredited school that gets them into an institution of higher learning. We're going to have to still fund our 4-year and 2-year institutions, because education is a priority in our society. And what we're doing, and if we want an educated workforce, we're going to have to put money into the most valuable commodity that we have in this state, and it's called our people. And if we can't invest in people, I'm saying investment, not just giveaways, but if we can't invest in people, then we're going to have a problem here. So this is our opportunity and time to make those investments in our people. Sometimes the investments aren't cute. They aren't sexy. They're not to the point to where they're glowing in beautiful buildings all the time. The investment could be just putting money into books. The investment could be putting money into a new driveway going into the school. The investment could be money in putting up a security fence around the school, a security system at the school, making sure our children and our babies are safe. Those are the investments that we could be making while we are willing to give this money away. And while I'm not, let me be clear, I'm not against rebates, but I think the rebate at the level that we're giving is an insult to the taxpayer at $105 that I think that we could utilize. And the average taxpayer might tell us, y'all just keep that and do something else with it. But we're going to do it, and I know that the chief executive officer of this state made that statement, that they were going to give rebates. And I know, and while I support the governor on a lot of her programs, the things that she's doing, the game plan and all, I could use some more money in site development stuff to help in my rural areas, to help develop, to be able to draw more folks, to be able to do more training, set up some training centers, you know, the AIDT or whatever they really do. I don't know what they do for real anyway, you know, because they don't train my folks anyway. But anyway, to be able to get some real money to help folks, you know, let's start looking at how do we're talking about the Innovation Corporation investing in tech companies and bringing them in so we can have a diverse economy in this state without letting auto industry take over everything. And then if the bottom ever fall out of it, then we're back at where we are. That's why we have to have a diversified kind of economy. So if we can diversify our economy by being able to make it more suitable for those companies to be attractive to the state of Alabama and investing it across the state to where everybody can participate in it, then those are the kind of investments that I'm talking about, where everybody could be a part of it. And I think that $275 million could be a start to making a lot of that happen. And the people would appreciate that. They would appreciate that. You know, because I think that the average person who are on the streets, who are saying, yeah, I want it, they're probably not tax filers. And they're going to be disappointed that they didn't get theirs. Because they're going to be calling me, hey, man, I ain't getting no check. Everybody got a check. I ain't getting no check. I get that all the time when the federal government was sending their money out to tax. I ain't getting no check. Okay, what can I do? Who can I call at the federal government? I don't want my check. Because they saw people getting $1,200, you know, $1,600. They saw that, but they weren't tax filers. And so you're going to get a lot of that on this. I'm going to have retirees calling me, what happened to my check? You know, you're not a tax filer. Just go to tax filers. And so then the next thing I'll go, oh, y'all gave it to the folks who don't even need it. The people who really need it didn't get it. I'm going to hear that. You're going to hear some of that. Unless you just represent rich folks. So when you represent poor folk like I do, you're going to hear that. So I'm going to be getting this, you know, I would rather us not just give away anything. And I don't have to deal with that pressure about $100.
You can tell them that we ended up saving the money because we watch the news and we see the projections and predictions for the economy.
Man, that don't matter to JoJo and Ray right now. you know, they want their check, man. You know, Jimbo and Billy Bob don't care about that, man. They want $400. They don't want $105. They'll take it because it came in the mail. But they're going to be cussing all the way, signing that back of their check. State of Alabama, cash this for me. Little, and they're going to be standing there telling the bank teller, I don't know why they sent us a little check. It ain't about nothing. They could have kept this. A lot of that going to happen. A lot of that going to happen. Yeah, the governor told us that life insurance was $400. They do that. Then she going to say, well, I wanted to do it, but the legislature was the one who cut y'all down.
The legislature chose to save the money if this bill passes through.
To those people who are on the street, it don't matter. I just rather not even give them a dime.
It will in a few years if we're running low on money and schools are hurting and bad things are happening.
I'm with you on that, but it's that in the years before they see that. Sometimes people are microwave is right now. We live in that right now society. We live in that microwave society. Okay, they don't wait. People don't use the stove no more to cook food slow and get the good texture out of the seasoning that they put into their food to cook it slow. That's why food is good, because when you're cooking it fast, you don't get the good texture. The seasoning don't get a chance to marinate into the food as it cooked. But when you cook it on slow, like when you put it in that crock pot and you leave it off and you go on, do what you want to do and come back at the end of the day and that roast is laying in there with the potatoes and everything, and you go to taste it and say, whoa, Lord, look at here. Look at the rest. Ooh, look at the masterpiece I just did. That's because it was cooked slow and easy. We're rushing. We're going too fast right now. We're microwaving. And I'm probably going to end up voting for it because I want my vote record to show the people, hey, I voted for you, so they won't be mad at me on the street. But I'm being honest about it. I'm going to sit here and advocate for it not to happen. I'm not offering an amendment to do anything else, but I just want my voice to be heard about it. Because I was convinced by leadership that we all sit in a room when the first CARES Act money came out. And we left out of that room saying, don't utilize the words outside of investment. Investment was our key word. You remember that? We all in that room and we told us, we go out here and we talk to the media, you tell them we are investing. That's why we put money in water and sewer. That's why we put money back in our hospital, rural hospitals, fire departments, all those things in our infrastructure that makes a difference, that really totally affects everybody's lives. It's not to the rich or the poor or, those in between. Everybody benefited from those investments. Roads, highways, streets, gas tax money, all of that investment. People crying to me about these raggedy roads that we got right now. But those that we put a blue sign on are investments. Those are investments. And so when we do that, we can say that you can ride on this smooth road for the next year or two before it started tearing up anyway, because they ain't making asphalt like they used to. They charging us higher but a thinner layer of it. And so at the end of the day, but when they spend that $100, it's gonna be gone. They're not gonna have it anymore, and they're gonna be complaining. It wasn't enough. Why did they just send me this little $105? It wasn't enough. It ain't ever gonna be enough. So I don't know why we're doing it. Again, we are not the federal government who print money. We are not those guys. I like to think that we operate a little bit different down here in Alabama, state that I love, the state that I toil and wake up every day with the promise that everybody in this state is equal, with the promise that we can all live in harmony and do the right thing, even despite and in spite of our past. That we went through the struggles, and most states benefit from the struggle that we had in this state. That whole movement of people, and everybody is piling on, and they're way ahead of us while we were the ones who toiled in this state, in this southern states, the Mississippi, the Alabamas, the Georgias, who took it on the chin for the rest of the states, and they are benefiting, and we're sitting around here talking about giving our folk $105. I'm okay with rebates. Again, I'm all right with rebates. I love rebates. Look, when the federal government sent me that $1,200 and the other $1,600, man, I was signing on the back. Put it right on in the bank, baby. Put it in the bank. But $100, they're gonna come to me. Not that I'm not gonna appreciate $100, because when I walk across the street and I see a penny on the ground, I picks it up. Don't get me wrong, I don't walk past and say, look at that penny. I pick it up, put it in my pocket. I do not leave no money laying around. I pick it up. Ain't no shame in my game. It's worth me bending my back for. Okay? Every penny counts. Just one I didn't have. One more at it. I'm gonna take the $100 when it comes to me. But I'd rather it not. Because I think once this bill passes, I'm going to have a choice. I ain't going to have the opt-out provision. See, now, if we were doing something and we put it on our income tax, check this box whether or not you want this $100 or not, or you get credit for it, for this $100 on our income tax if you check this box. That way we are not sending out any money. You're giving people credit of their income tax, and then that way it becomes something more meaningful to them. Because if I turn around, owe the state $150 on my income tax, and I got this credit for $105, now I only owe $45 to the state. So, we just have to think about those things that we need to invest in, put a little bit more money in. We got schools that are out here that need more money, students out here that are crying. Principals and superintendents want to send students on trips for enrichment. They can't even get it, that kind of money to do so. We got at-risk kids out here that we're trying to deal with on a daily basis. We have problems in our school. Mental health in our schools is bad. We never put our mental health counselors in our schools. We never were able to put social workers in our school to be able to do wraparound services for the whole entire family. Those kind of things we never put in our school systems to make it work, to say that we are doing those number one things. We can't be number one doing number 50 things. If we're going to be number 50, that's why we're doing number 50 things. And I know people keep telling me, Bobby, don't keep saying because we are not number 50. Okay, number 35. We ain't number one. Until we number one, I'm not satisfied. And if we're satisfied with being where we are, with all the excess capital that we have for our education, for our children, where we need to be investing this money, then we are not the lawmakers that we ought to be. We need to give up our positions and go home and let somebody else come down here who want to see us be number one. Look like we happy with being number 50. 49, 48, 47, 46, 45, 44, 43. I don't care what number, because every time I say 50, the education department, we not number 50 no more. Like you just went up 2 scales like I'm supposed to be happy. If you ain't number one, I ain't satisfied. We want to be at the top. We want to play in the top 5%. If we're not there, then what are we doing? We're just practicing. We're hustling backwards. And this is a one time that we have had the dollars to do for our education system, whether it's private, public, charter, wherever it is. We got money to be able to help with some of the problems that we have. And while we're doing it, we're band-aiding the problems instead of fixing the problems. There's a fix. There's a fix to these problems. And we can do it and we can maintain it. But if you go on and do it, you know, because I realize, Senator, if I let my grass grow too high, it costs me more gas to cut it. Because it takes more time and I got to cut it slower and do it. But if I keep my grass trim, I can get across it all in one tank. Because it's easy to cut. I'm just clipping and moving, I'm going. But if I got to slow it down, I might use 2 tanks of gas to get it done versus 1. So all I'm saying is that let's invest instead of giving it away, because right then, those same folks are going to be hurting tomorrow after they do that same $100. They're going to have that same $105 problem after they spend that $105. It's going to be another $105 problem. Okay? That's what it's going to be. It's not going to be a solution. Maybe for that day. I was hungry, I ate. But tomorrow, that stomach going to growl again if you don't put no food in it. But if I invest in your stomach, you'll be all right. So while I applaud you for what you did and your foresight to be able to take some of this money and invest it back into a savings, I would rather saw this $275 million put a roof on a school. I would rather saw it, you know, put a new lab, STEM lab, into a university or somewhere where a child can learn, or in a school, at a public school or charter school or whatever we want to do. Put a new STEM lab or a math lab, a reading lab. Since we asking these folks to be ready, then we need to be invested in those things that we're requiring them to do. Why aren't we requiring and putting reading labs in school and math labs in school, to where just like we do other computer labs? The tools that they need to be able to get those kids ready. Because I don't think we're in the business of just wanting to flunk third graders. The intent is to get them ready, to have the qualifier and the ability to be able to measure where they are. so that we can build off of that. But if we're not investing in it and just telling them what to do, it become another one of those unfunded mandates. Even though we put some money in and say, let's do it, but are we really giving them the tools to do what they need to do? I don't think so. I think that we're happy with being, I don't know what number they say. They keep telling me, stop saying we're number 50. I heard that from the State Department. Stop saying we're number 50. Okay, let's say you number 20. You ain't number 1. Until we number 1, I'm not happy. I don't know about the rest of y'all. Until we're number 1, somebody's sitting at the top. There's some school system in some state like Vermont, up in the Northeast, that says that they are the number 1 school system in the nation. I want their spot. I want their spot. And we ought to be fighting to get their spot. And in order to get their spot, we need to be investing in the best commodity that we have. It's called our children. And if we're not investing in children, if we're not investing in quality teachers, if we're not investing in even the janitors, the school bus driver, all the support workers that are around, we need to be investing in them. They haven't had a raise. We need to be investing in those people who are support workers, tutorers. We need to be investing there. We can take this $275 million and invest in them. That's what we need to be doing. Not investing in a rebate to give $105. I'm standing here because it's an insult to send the taxpayer of this state $105 back. Y'all ought to be ashamed of yourselves to go up there and divvy that out. If you had asked me, you could call me in that meeting. See, that wasn't the back room meeting that I wasn't invited to, because you'd have heard this speech in the back room meeting. But all the conservatives want to give away money and just think we on this side over here supposed to be liberal and we asking y'all not to. Lord, look at the tide and turned. Look how the tide and turned. Look how the tide has turned. And guess what? The pendulum gonna swing back this way again too. Y'all keep this up. A rebate, a giveaway. And I'm for rebates. But make it worth the taxpayer a while. Make it worth them getting something that they could do something with. If we're going to give away, then give it away. But if we're not, don't just put a Band-Aid and play with it and just say we did something for a taxpayer when we're really not doing anything but complicating things. I understand to send out those checks to the number of taxpayers that's going to qualify going to cost in excess of $5 million to send the checks out. I could take $5 million and put it into one of my school systems, and it probably would change the world for them. It would change how those babies see the world if they got $5 extra million. That's just the stamps they're going to take to send the check out. I just want us to think about what we're doing. Can we be number 1 time in something without being satisfied at being number whatever below 1? Because I'm not happy until we number 1. Somebody sits in that number 1 spot. I understand there used to be a school in Massachusetts, Vermont, or somewhere. Their school systems are supposed to be the top school systems in the nation. I want their spot. I'm not satisfied until we're number 1, and let's do number 1 things. We can't be number 1 doing 50 things, because there's a pattern on how number 50 do their things. That's why they number 50. There's a pattern what number 1 does on a daily basis. That's why they are number 1. If we're going to be a copycat, let's copy out the number one and do what they do. Measure up. Stop running from it. Creating other opportunities instead of doing the right thing. This rebate is an insult. $400, I could have stood here, said what I had to say, went on to sit down. But $105, that's an insult to the people of the state of Alabama who go to work hard every day and pay their taxes. And this is what you're gonna tell me you're gonna give me back? $105. I got a little school over in Demopolis, Alabama, that the governor named in this budget. While I know that we need to do some other work, while I understand that we need to do some other things before we actually build a school, feasibilities, I'm just asking for $2.2 million to be able to get the feasibility and engineering and site work done for a health and science school in West Alabama that could help children. This is educational related. Out of this $275 million out of rebate, I need to give me an amendment to ask me for $2.2 million out of this money. Y'all need to take a break. We'll go to lunch.
So, Mr. President, as we continue on this discussion,
Let's go.
Real quick, let me recognize some special guests in the
Yes,
gallery,
please.
if y'all don't mind, okay? I got some special guests in the gallery, and I call your name. If you could please stand. The Tallapoosa County Farmers Federation, the guest of Senator Jay Hovey and Senator Clyde Chambliss. Y'all can please stand. Welcome to Alabama Senate. Senator Singleton, thank you.
Thank you,
Back
Mr.
to you.
President. And so I have this little old school, Health and Science for Humanities, that was going to be located in West Alabama, that the governor announced in her state to state, that will help create nurses, potential doctors, respiratory therapists, all of those things that we were missing during the pandemic because in some of the rural areas and rural hospitals just didn't have the personnel to be able to have ventilators to save people's lives. We want to start a high school and start these kids at that level. It's getting wiped out of the budget. And we want to give $275 million back to taxpayers with a $105 check when we don't want to fund a school system that can educate our children and to be the future of this state to make sure that we have a workforce in health care. Something is wrong with this picture. We doing number 50 things while we talking about we want to be number one. That's not number one. This is a total unrelated educational project to give this rebate when I got a project over here that all I'm asking for today is $2.2 million to get it started. And I'm being told no. Because one, folks probably don't want to see nothing in West Alabama. So be it. But at the end of the day, this is educational related. I didn't come up here asking for something that was not educational related. I'm asking for those things that's going to help children, that's going to help be our future, that's going to help solve problems in our community. Give these kids an opportunity to grow, to be somebody, to have expectations beyond what their minds could think of today. Give them something to dream about, that can become a reality. Not just in certain parts of the state, but all over this state. Give our children a chance. We don't need a rebate. Give them a chance. Our babies are our biggest commodity for us to invest in. Let's invest in our babies. Let's invest in our young adults in 2-year colleges and in 4-year colleges. Let's invest in the future. If we're talking about retaining people in this state, we need to invest in them so they'll stay in this state and invest back into this state. But we can't do that. And we talking about a throwaway. We talk about we didn't have money to be able to do Medicaid expansion, but we ready to throw $275 million out the door. We can't give everybody in this state health care because we can't do Medicaid expansion, but we ready to throw $275 million out the door in $105 increments in checks. Them a lot of checks. But that's a curse word around here called Medicaid expansion. That's a curse word. We don't want to give little children in West Alabama the ability to be able to have an educational system where they can learn something about health science, but we're willing to throw $275 million in the streets. We might as well just take the money and just go down the street and just throw it out the window. So here you go, fight for it. I'm okay with the 500 and some odd million you put up. But this $275 million, we can expand Medicaid. And everybody will have a health care system that they can rely on. Don't get me to talk about these healthcare systems, how these hospitals run people out of the hospital because they don't have insurance and they need the bed and they send them home to die. Don't get me to talking about that because my heart is heavy on that right now. So I'm going to stay on my school. A school in West Alabama, all I'm gonna be asking for when the supplement come up is $2.2 million to do the study, to be able to come up with the engineering. And I know somebody gonna say you're getting ahead of the game. But I didn't say nothing when other folks were putting up their schools for the children. And this is not just a school for West Alabama, it's for the state of Alabama. Kids from all over the state can come and go to school there if they're interested in health science and humanities. But we want to put $275 million and throw it away on the streets in increments of $105 check to taxpayers when those people who really need it won't even get a check. Let's be practical about this, people. Let's be reasonable. I'm for rebates, but this is an insult. At the end of the day, to throw away $275 million in the streets, and we call ourselves fiscal conservatives. I'm glad y'all know y'all got a little liberalism in your body. I'm glad to see that. Thank you, Jesus. Yay! A giveaway that don't mean anything to anybody. And I can't say that because there's some people out there that $100 is gonna help them and in that moment that they get it. But at the end of the day, we're gonna be investing more into other things. I like that word, investment. But we got to be intentional about the things that we do if we want to be number one. We cannot be number one and not be intentional about being number one. Some school system, when somebody look up, Google who's the number one school system in the United States? What state has the number one school system in the United States? I think it was somewhere up in the Northeast somewhere, Massachusetts, Vermont. That was a couple of years ago, I don't know. Massachusetts. I want their spot, Senator. I want their spot. I want somebody to say Alabama came after Massachusetts aggressively and they're doing those number one things. I want the spot. We can't get that spot when we keep trying to create other sources every time. Well, public school don't work, let's go to charter. Public school don't work, let's go homeschool. Public school don't work, let's go over here. Fix it! We can do that. And it don't always take money throwing at it. It just takes sometimes attention. State school board got to do something more than what they do. Have some direction, sending us some policy to be able to get to be number one. They need to be sending some over here and say, hey, this is what it's going to take for us to be number one. We don't get that direction from them. Then when we pass something over here, then they say, oh, y'all throw that on us with unfunded mandate. Now we got to go out here and implement it because you did it. Well, give us something to go on. Show us what your plan is. Give me your educational plan to be number one. Why does Massachusetts have to sit up there at the top all alone? Why can't we share that spot with them? Because we don't want to be number one. We satisfied with being where we are. We getting complacent, and we play. As my old friend used to say when we were growing up, we may like it. We may like we want to do something about it, but we ain't really doing nothing about it. We can talk about we putting money up here for savings. We doing all this here for savings, but where's the investments? Sometimes I would rather just go on and invest the money than to save the money. Then at least you know what you're getting out of your investment. Than to still have a broken system and sitting over here with a whole bunch of money and watching the system go down and down. So you can have a bunch of money in your pocket, and if your roof is leaking, you're going to have a messed up house in a minute if you don't fix that leak. But you can talk about all the money you got in the bank you want. And I'm for the savings. I want us to do that. And we need to look out for those kind of days. But when we got an opportunity to invest more than what we have been doing, and these are the opportunities that we have now, why aren't we? I really don't see a whole lot in this supplemental. It's investment for what we really need to make us number one. Had talked to me, I could have told you about a lot of things. I gave them a program to do turnaround schools. How are we going to do that? None of that is in there in terms of the programs. How do we get to where we need to go without a plan? State Board of Education, send me a plan. Show me how we get to number one. And let us do the policy over here. They can do administrative policy over on that side of the house. But those things that we need legislatively, give me something to work with. Then when we call them out, then they go to crying. We do what we supposed to do. No, you don't. 90% of the folks don't even know who on the State Board of Education. Don't even know who their state member is. And then we get over here, because they don't do their job, we're going to take their job from them like we experts in education. Half of us in here don't even know what the heck we talking about. We just coming up with concepts. Concepts that we think that other states are doing, that we think we ought to be doing. Versus trying to model number one. What is number one doing? I've never heard anybody come in here and say, oh, this is what Massachusetts is doing. This is a policy that we're going to put in place. Massachusetts is doing this. If somebody come in, well, why Massachusetts? Because they number one. We got to do number one things. It may not always fit us, but we can sure try it. We need to look at it and shape it to get us to where we need to be. You can pour water in any kind of shape you want it. It's going to take the form of the shape. But if you don't pour into it, you're going to get nothing but air and space. So if you don't pour into education, you're not going to get anything out of education. It's just like your children. If you don't pour anything into your children as a parent, you're not going to get anything out of your children. Somebody else is going to educate them for you. So what we do is we let the streets educate our children for us instead of us pouring into education. We can't keep running from the common denominator. Because the one thing about it, we can set up charter schools, all kinds of schools we want to. But the common denominator is public schools. Every public school has to take a child. Charter schools don't have to take every child. Private schools don't have to take every child. Okay? But public school does. Even if they got 50 kids in that classroom, they got to add another seat. Because what is public schools? Let's fix the problem. Let's not continue to put the Band-Aid on it. Let's make it work. I want Massachusetts spot. I want to be number one. Who want to be number one with me? Raise your hand. Let's do number one things then. See, nobody over there raised their hand because they're complacent with being where you are and calling yourself a physical conservative and leaving our babies to just go on the wayside. Because you're complacent. You're content with being all right because your own individual little school system is doing okay. Not the state is doing okay, but your own individual little school systems are doing okay. Therefore, you are happy with that. Give me something to work with. Give us something to work with. I wasn't intending to come up here and preach, no, I swear. I really didn't have this. This was not my intent. But the more I keep talking, the more the reality comes out, and we're not doing the right thing by our babies with this stuff, man. We're really not. We're really not doing the right things by our babies. We're cheating our babies. We're really cheating our babies. We are cheating them. We're cheating our babies. We're cheating our young adults. We really are cheating them. We ought to be ashamed of ourselves as a legislature, cheating the public. And then we want to take $275 million and just throw it out in the wind in the name of a rebate that's only going to give people $105. We can invest that money in somewhere else. I just want a little old school in Demopolis. That's for children. That's for the future. That's for helping us be able to have doctors and nurses and all the other support behind that. Our school bus drivers have not had a raise in years. Our janitors in our school has not had a raise in years. Our support workers, the lunchroom workers who feed our babies has not had a raise in years. And we're going to throw $275 million down the drain, out the window. Just throw it on out the window. That's what it equal to, Senator. It's just throwing it out the window. And then somebody gonna tell me, why am I gonna invest in that? It makes no sense. This makes no sense. Help me make this make sense. Help me, won't some of you physical conservatives help me make this make sense? Can somebody help me make this make sense? Or is this just a group think that everybody just gonna vote that way? This is in group think. Y'all in group think mode now. Instead of individuals really feeling what they really feel about this. I'm for rebates. But again, this $105 is an insult to the taxpayers of this state. I was already straddling the fence at $400. Or the preacher getting wound up now. I'm coughing. I'm gonna vote for the bill. I'm not gonna be stuck out there with my people saying I ain't vote for that $105. But at the end of the day, I just want people to understand where we are. We can do a lot more with $275 million. Excuse me, for our babies. Our babies deserve more. Our babies don't deserve to have to sit in classrooms with leaking roofs. Our babies don't have to. don't deserve to be sitting in classroom without technology, without the ability to be able to have all the tools that they need in their classrooms. Our babies don't deserve that. Our babies deserve to have everything that's needed to get a good education. Qualified teachers, good people working on the hallways, secure schools, making sure that they got cameras. We got people walking in our schools shooting our babies all the time across this nation. And we seem to be sanitized by it that we don't seem to care. We don't seem to care about whether or not our babies graduate or not, because we want to put on all of these different programs of Numeracy Act, Literacy Act, when all of these things are good in terms of what the results should be bringing, but are we really giving them the tools to be able to get to that level? 5 minutes, then I'm gonna take my second hour. Thank you very much. Ooh, I got 2 more hours because she gave me 2 cough drops. No, I'm not here to prolong this a long time. My leader just clapped behind me. They let me know I need to tighten up on the sermon. In closing, in all sincerity, I think that we can do a whole lot more with $275 million than what we're doing here now, people. When we come back up, and when the budget comes up, I'm going to come up with an amendment asking for $2.2 million to start a health science school. I'm going to see whether or not y'all going to give a vote for children or not. Or you going to vote it down? I'm going to ask for it. Just like the governor asked for this rebate, the governor asked for this school. And I'm going to ask for it as something that's education related. While I have an amendment to pull it from the prison, maybe I need to get an amendment to pull it out of this $275 million off this rebate money. Give me $2.2 million out of this rebate money. Then that way they can have $103. Because I want to take $2.2 million to start a school for babies, for our young adults, to be able to have educational opportunities to where they can learn. I want to give them that opportunity because it's education related. This rebate is not education related. I want us to be able to to give the kids the tools that's needed. So with that, Mr. Chairman, I want to thank you for the work that you've done with this budget. I want to thank you for having the foresight to be able to put some of this money back for that rainy day, because we are going to see some of these downturns, and there's going to be some downtrodden times. But also, I have to say that I don't know who twists your arm so hard to make you throw $275 million out the window in the wind. This is unlike you. But I applaud you for the other work that you've done. And this is not individually at you. I hope you understand that. But this is about the process that we go through. And you know, as I know, we could be using this money to invest in a whole lot of more stuff. I'd rather so you put the whole thing up than to be just throwing it out in the wind. I'm going to ask for $2.2 million. I'm going to try to get it from this pot right here. Because if we can throw this in the wind, we could sure enough throw it in the wind of a school that somebody may think that might not work, but at least we'll try. It's no different than throwing this money in the street right here. It's no different. than just throwing it away. At least we will give an opportunity to make sure that we can have a chance to give babies an opportunity. We ain't giving nobody an opportunity with this $105 that they're gonna get. So when you come up with that supplemental, I'm gonna come back with it, and I'm gonna give me an amendment to ask for me $2.2 million out of this $275 million. That's where I'm gonna move it from. Okay? I was gonna go at the prison. But I'm gonna come at this money, because this is throwing, I wish I could say what I really feel about this, going in the wind. So if you could throw $275 million out the door like this, sir, don't tell me 2.2 is a waste of money. Don't come here telling me 2.2 is a waste of money, when this $275 million is surely a waste of taxpayer money. Thank you, Mr. President, and I yield back to the gentleman.
All right, thank you. And I think Senator Orr, you had a motion earlier to approve using previous roll.
I did, Mr.
All right, any objection? Roll call. All right, Secretary, call the long roll.
Mr. Albritton, Mr. Allen, Mr. Barfoot, Mr. Beasley, Mr. Bell, Mr. Butler, Mr. Cornley, Mr. Chambliss, Mr. Chasteen, Ms. Coleman, Ms. Coleman Madison, Mr. Elliott, Ms. Figures, Mr. Gavan, Mr. Gudger, Mr. Hatcher, Mr. Hovey, Mr. Jones, Mr. Kelly, Mr. Livingston, Mr. Melson, Mr. Orr, Mr. Price, Mr. Reed, Mr. Roberts, Mr. Schofield, Mr. Sessions, Mr. Shelnut, Mr. Singleton, Mr. Smitherman, Mr. Stewart, Mr. Stutz, Mr. Wagner, Ms. Weaver, Mr. Williams,
A 30 ayes, 3 nays. Senate Bill 86 passes amended. All right, Secretary, call the next bill.
On page 24 of the calendar, Senate Bill 88 regarding the Education Trust Fund, BIR pending.
All right, Senator Orr.
Thank you, Mr. President. I have a substitute to offer.
All right, Secretary Reed received the substitute, and as we're getting that, I'd like to recognize some special guests in the gallery, the guest of Senator Wagner. When I call your name, if you could please stand, the Vestavia Hills Elementary West. If y'all could please stand. Welcome to Alabama Senate. All right, Secretary Reed received the substitute.
The table, yeah, Mr. President, at this time I need to move to table the committee substitute.
All right, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? We have tabled the committee substitute.
I'd like to offer a substitute.
All right, Secretary Reed received the substitute, please.
Substitute to Senate Bill 88 by Senator Orr.
Thank you, Mr. President. And members, the staff is bringing around a spreadsheet to circulate to everyone of the floor substitute, and we'll do what we always do and walk through the floor substitute. And they're also bringing copies of the budget if you're interested in the verbiage as well. But we'll be working from the spreadsheet. So they're bringing copies around of both the, like I said, the verbiage, the budget, and then the spreadsheet. So everybody should have one of each for their reading pleasure. So I'm thinking everybody has a copy of the spreadsheet. So all right, so Ms. Doyle has the, all right, Ms. Doyle has given everyone a copy of the spreadsheet. We'll go down the changes. The changes in the far right column are all the changes that we've made either in the committee sub or this floor sub, so they're combined. So if that makes sense to you, if you'll see some things at the committee sub, a lot of things at the committee sub had changed, and then this is for the floor sub is included in there. So coming through there, on page 1, you see the legislative services needed a small increase. Coming on down, archives, the Council on the Arts, down to the bottom, community college system. You see there at the line 36 at the bottom of page 1 where we gave money for those workers in the community college system, their salary scale tapped out, or capped out, I should say, at 30 years. This will provide them raises over 30 years and that they can continue to receive raises. The board is also in the community college system working on their salary structure for support staff in the community college system. The next item we have, again, this is compared to the governor's rec on page 2, down there at the bottom. You see a small increase for adult ed programs. Coming on down at the bottom there, Chancellor's Fund has been cut year over year for capital improvements because we're doing a lot of things elsewhere in the supplemental, and that number was reduced. The next page, on page 3, looking at Marion Military Institute, they need the pay raise. They're not part of the pay raise, so we have to do it in the budget. Then we have the Hall of Honor that the governor had put in, which is a new item there. Coming on down, ATN, the technology network, there on line 84, same thing, pay raise baked in. Got their STEAM spending, slight increase there. Coming on down to the cyber school, the Accel program. That is a statewide program for the bill that passed here to establish that school gave them, that's one of their 3 mandates, that they're supposed to take cyber curriculum around the state. And I know they've done 3 counties thus far in their own budget, but this gives them money to fulfill that mission. Dental scholarships, small increase there. Then we come down to something that we talked about in committee, the broadband funding that we had, and we've done over $500 million of broadband funding. So to have that included, I'm on line 114. We removed that because the ARPA, the CARES, and other funds that we have done for broadband, we put a lot into that program. In my understanding, right now, they're over capacity as far as what they can deliver as far as laying fiber across the state. Coming on through the budget, something that we meant in the education in the foundation program there. Still a healthy amount for OCE, but a good bit of that you'll see went down the line there, and I'm on lines 125, 126, and 127. Those are things we mentioned in committee yesterday, as far as money for special ed educators, also the school nurses, and also support staff. We didn't have a number yesterday. We've got I'm going to call it a good guesstimate of what those costs are going to be to help with those salary enhancements and help those. We've helped the teachers. We did STEM with the TEAMS Act to help with math and science teachers. We've done educators with the salary matrix and large raises. Now we're doing support staff, language, speech language specialists, school special ed teachers, school nurses, and the call to the language therapist. So all of those are getting stipend enhancements, or in the case of support staff, we should see their salaries be able to go up. And we explained in committee yesterday the challenges, because those individuals are not on a salary matrix, statewide salary matrix. They're all handled locally, and so that's it's a little difficult for us to gauge, but this is a starting point to help schools across the state bring those salaries up for the bus drivers, the cafeteria workers, the custodians, and people who are very important in what they do. Because if we didn't have them, we'd surely notice. And
thank you. I was going to ask that question. Were they included in that? Okay.
That's who this is for. Secretaries, administrative assistants, and people like that. Very important in the education.
So this was I'm sorry, Mr. President. This was a number that the best number y'all could come up with.
This is that's another way to put it. I said a guesstimate, but it's a best estimate as we put some in here. May change with the House. We may get, it may be $16.1 million, but this is a comfortable number that the LFO staff was with after pulling from the State Department and other organizations of what might move them up to that.
So this is not based on a percentage raise, like a 2%?
No,
so we don't know what that really would do for them?
Like I explained in committee, what we're trying to do is bring folks up to a certain hour rate north of where they are. Some systems are already there.
Because of local money.
Exactly. So they may see a slight raise, but we're looking for the lower paid folks to get them up to a minimum, a higher minimum. And
so if they're at $8 an hour, we want them up to $10 an hour.
Exactly.
That's what we're trying to do.
Exactly.
I got you.
Yeah, but we're looking at a lot more than that.
I'm just an example.
Yeah,
got you.
that's the goal, Senator.
Thank you.
Coming on into the Department of Ed, the earmarks, you see the speech therapist on line 144, that is part of that. Then the next page that rolls up into that earmarked number of 1.85. You've got the principal bill. I'll be filing that next week. It's just too busy with the budget. I'm on line 182, and that's to provide starting a training program for principals, and then my hope is in next year's budget we should see a stipend amount to help with principals. Also, was brought the school camera program. We mentioned, in that bill passed the Senate, that we would be putting a grant pot for local systems, and that's line 183 is that establishment of that. Coming on, getting the music education across the state, there on line 186, small increase. Coming on down line 222 on page 6, the High Hopes program, and I think I skipped at risk. There's another at risk and $1 million increase earlier in the budget that I think I jumped over. coaches, athletic trainers, that's the Senator Chastain bill that we just passed an hour or so ago. There's funding for that, for those trainers in the 1, 2, and 3 division and poverty, I think it's poverty schools, at Title I schools. We're on line 226. Next, we have the Helping Families. We talked about that in committee. That's the one for truants to help restore truants back to the classroom, get them back in school, and been a successful program statewide. Next item we have is the Liberty Learning Foundation, small increase, HEAL, healthy eating. Then 243, line 243, that is the 3 botanical gardens, restoring that funding across the state, north, central, and south. Coming on down, small increase for evaluation of services on line 260, the rural health program. Next page, we have just restoring the tick-borne illness commission funding. Then coming on to AIC, that money is broken down on page 9. You've got the battleship, it's increased there in Mobile, $600,000. Then the computer forensics in Shelby County, a lot of national trainings go on there. And then we have RC&D programs, increase for them. Historical Commission, a grant program that most of you all are familiar with. If you're not, you should be. Help grant projects throughout the state. You see an extra bump up with the civil rights sites that can help, and the Historical Commission does a good job with that program, helping sites all across the state with certain needs. Library service at the bottom of the page, on page 9, is a small increase. Going to page 10, the workforce, 21st century workforce at the top of page 10, small increase there. Then we get into mental health. We talked about that yesterday. They are under severe stress with their MI, substance abuse, and the three legs of the stool, MI, DD, and substance abuse. So put some money to help with those programs. Turning the page, rehab services, some increases to help their federal dollars, also helping the autism program that they're partnering with the mental health agency. Space science, similar to the battleship, line 418, a $600,000 increase there. Then we get into higher education. We had some money for the physician residency program at UAB and South Alabama schools of medicine, at Auburn, an irrigation program that is moving from UAH to Auburn, and then $1 million to Troy on page 14 for the Free Enterprise Scholars Program, and then that's it for higher ed. And then we have the Tuskegee increase on line 565. So that's it in a nutshell. I know some people are hungry, and I'll certainly entertain any questions that you may have.
All right. Senator Singleton, do you have any questions, or?
No, I mean, this is the budget, so I only have budget questions on supplement when it comes up. So I see where we are with the budget. There are some questions, but I can read it,
Not a lot of changes really from the.
Not a whole lot.
All right, Senator Orr.
I'd move third read, you move adoption of the substitute using the previous roll, or the long roll.
All right.
Guess we had some no.
Secretary, call a long roll.
Mr. Albritton. Mr. Allen. Mr. Barfoot. Mr. Beasley. Mr. Bell. Mr. Butler. Mr. Cornley. Mr. Chambliss. Mr. Chasteen. Ms. Coleman. Ms. Coleman Madison. Mr. Elliott. Ms. Figures. Mr. Gavan. Mr. Gudger. Mr. Hatcher. Mr. Hovey. Mr. Jones. Mr. Kelly. Mr. Livingston. Mr. Melson. Mr. Orr. Mr. Price. Mr. Reed. Mr. Roberts. Mr. Schofield. Mr. Sessions. Mr. Shellnut. Mr. Singleton.
Aye.
Mr. Smitherman.
Aye.
Mr. Stewart. Mr. Stutz. Mr. Wagner. Ms. Weaver. Mr. Williams.
Ready?
35 ayes, 0 nays. The Senator Orr substitutes adopted. Senator Orr.
Thank you, Mr. President. This time I'd move third reading using the previous roll.
All right, any objection? Hearing none, so ordered.
Mr. President.
35 ayes, 0 nays. Senate Bill 88 is passed. Thanks, Senator Orr.
Mr. President.
Yeah.
I would move to receive committee reports throughout legislative day.
All right, any objection? Hearing none, so ordered. Committee reports throughout the day. All right. Secretary, call the next bill, please.
On page 25 of the calendar, Senate Bill 87 by Senator Orr regarding supplemental appropriation.
All right, Senator Orr.
All right.
BIR is pending.
Mr. President, I move adoption of the BIR using the previous roll.
All right, any objection? Hearing none, so ordered.
Mr. Albritton, Mr. Williams.
35 ayes, 0 nays. The BR is adopted. Secretary, call the bill.
Yes.
On page 25 of the calendar, Senate Bill 87 by Senator Orr regarding supplemental appropriation.
All right, Mr. President, I'd move to table the committee substitute.
All right, all those in favor say aye. Any opposed?
Sure.
The committee substitute is tabled. All right, Senator Orr.
Thank you, Mr. President. Let me make sure that I have the correct substitute to offer before I offer it. That's correct. All right.
All right, Secretary Reed, receive the substitute, please.
Substitute by Senator Orr to Senate Bill 87.
Okay, members, I'm going to pause while Ms. Doyle circulates copies. Yes, she's going to bring them. So we're going to pause. This is a floor substitute to the supplemental. And we're going to do like we did in committee yesterday and just walk through the various lines with the supplemental.
All right, Senator Orr.
All right. Has Ms. Doyle made it around the chamber? We'll make sure everybody's got the substitute. You should have one 2023-1956. should be the version that you have. So the one says 2023, 1956 at the top.
All right, Senator Orr. You want me to recognize her, or did you want to go over your stuff first?
I'll yield to the gentleman if she'd like to say something.
All right, Senator Coleman.
Thank you so much, Mr. President, for the recognition. I actually wanted to speak on the last bill, but it goes so quick when you do the previous role, and actually thank the chairman for what the appropriation that was in for Miles College, and you and I had a discussion about it. Of course, we would have liked to have more money, but we're glad that we got that appropriation. But in the supplemental, and I know you're gonna go through with this line by line, we've got so many new programs there, esports, all of the things that are brand new, up and coming to attract young people to that college. And just wanted to know in the supplemental, if there's going to be anything in the supplemental. Again, we got about $400,000 through the A&M Extension program under the budget. But with all of these millions of dollars of new funding, just trying to find out if we're going to get anything additional, especially in line with all of the new program. And again, e-game sporting, I don't even understand it, but I don't even understand a degree in entrepreneurship. However, all of these new programs that attract young people into Jefferson County, to that HBCU, just would like to know from the gentleman if there's going to be anything in the supplemental appropriation for Miles College.
Well, you know, Miles College is a private school, so we don't, we're very sparing with those appropriations. You saw Talladega had a level fund. You saw Tuskegee being a quasi.
Yeah, I was here when we did that.
Quasi-state. I feel like they need to get a quasi increase because of the
state-relatedness.
Yes, and we, like I said in committee, I know they're an important institution for our state, and we're proud of them, and want to help them as best we can.
Well, and I'm proud of Tuskegee also, but again, Miles College is in my legislative district.
Right.
And again, do amazing work, amazing civil rights history in that school. When I think about the role that the school played in not only changing the state of Alabama, but this country, and then now still continuing to grow with the times with all of the new technology, all of those things. Again, just wanting to make sure, if not this time, that we have it on record that in Fairfield, Alabama, there are some great opportunities for folks, and we might want to look at some of this innovative programming, especially in the area of STEM when it comes to Miles College.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. All right, members, everybody's got a copy. Let's run through it, and we'll pause for questions if you have any. So the first item you have there, I'm on page 1, section 1 there, the $275 million we've heard a lot about from this morning. That's where that money comes into play, right there on line 25. Next, we're going to prepay. Well, we can't prepay, but there's some bonds coming due there at $18 million, line 29, the PSCA bond issue. So that is we're going to have money to pay those off. Then we've got risk management, our insurance fund that we have for insurance and educators and liability that's out there. That came across in the governor's recommended amount. State Board of Education, you see the salary matrix there. I'm on line 33. You see the roll-up numbers there, 64 million. That's kind of the roll-up number, and then we'll go to the breakdown. The salary matrix, that's where last year, we put in that 1% raise, and we were off a little bit per the guidance. And so this is a makeup that we have to do in fiscal 23 that we're in based on the fiscal '23 budget that we passed. We had to make up some money because we undershot the cost of that salary matrix increase. Next, you've got fleet renewal, buses, new buses based on need. Then you come on down. We talked about this in committee, line 40. That money is for prepaying or paying educators come August when they go to buying classroom supplies. We're going to be able to give them funding for their classroom supplies in August as opposed to October, which is the tradition, but half a semester is gone. So we decided that'd be a good expenditure of money to be able to get it before the school year starts. Coming on down the State Department of Ed, line 45, you see the $360 million. That's the money that we've talked about already. It will go out per a formula, PSCA formula for K-12, and then be allowed to be expended per the A&T, Advancement in Technology guidelines or restrictions, and that's capital expenditures, and then also security items that some of your superintendents may have been calling you about. So all that to say they will have the equivalent of A&T money, it's just not coming from the Advancement in Technology Fund, but the same definition applies. Coming on down line 53, charter schools, college and career readiness grants, $24 million for school math camps, line 56. These all came from the governor as recommended. Top of page 3, line 57, $40 million for school safety grants. There was a $10 million recommended amount, and I appreciate the acknowledgement, certainly for school safety. Felt very strongly that we needed to raise that number, and listening to a lot of you all about concerns about school safety. We've quadrupled the original recommended amount, and so that's something that I think your folks back home will be pleased to get, because I know superintendents, principals, teachers are very concerned about that. Next, we have an interesting program that'll be located in Birmingham, undertaken by several large corporations to help with this, a junior achievement project. I wouldn't be surprised to see them do that elsewhere in the state if they get local support. The total cost, if I'm not mistaken, is around $10 million, so a lot of local funds raised there. Then we've got the American Village for Independence Hall in time for 2026 in the 250th celebration of the independence, sesquicentennial. The Holocaust Commission, a traveling thing that they have, the Ed Farm McWane Center there that a lot of children attend, Children's Trust Fund for software, then the Sabin Discovery Center being constructed in Tuscaloosa. I'm turning the page, the Fire College, line 91, PHIP. We talked about this in the budget a little bit. If you recall the ARPA legislation, PHIP got $40 million, but had about $100 million in COVID-related cost. And that's one reason, because we decided to spend that money, a good bit of that money on broadband, that you saw the $25 million for broadband in the budget come out, because we have this delta, this cost here for PHIP that in my humble opinion, should have been paid in the ARPA bill. But nonetheless, all right, moving ahead, Department of Commerce. We got the Earthworks program over in Talladega County, Lauderdale, the Workforce Training Center.
Excuse me, Senator, what line are you on? So we kind of got lost where we are.
98.
98.
Then the AIDT EV Workforce Training Center, then Challenger Center in Gadsden, line 103, coming on down. The line 110, this is a change from the governor's budget, or recommended supplemental. This 40 million was 10 million in the recommended one, and this is based on the seeds bill for the sites, to help sites prepare for projects. And so that's the reason we quadrupled that line item as well, that will hopefully help with economic development. All right, coming on next page, page 5, the Ag Center down in Dothan. You got Hudson Alpha, then a very interesting program I'm on line 24, 124, for Southern Research in Birmingham with cystic fibrosis. Going to be a very good partnership for that center there in Birmingham. And they have signed a national agreement with the international cystic fibrosis folks. Next, you've got the study for long COVID, and then you've got improvements at the Innovation Center. This came from the governor. We did add the earmark down there on line 131 for a study to establish a statewide trails network at Jacksonville State. I did not know this. They have a whole, I think they got a major in trails and trails construction. They do a lot at Jack State with regard to outdoors and trails. And so anyway, that would be the best place to
Mr. Chairman.
See, sir.
I just wanted to give Senator Jones, there is kudos. He is one that's really trying to pull that, what you just talked about, together. And I've had a chance to see it, and it's going to be something great for this whole state if we can do it.
It's going to take a while and a lot of money, but it will really be a nice thing. So we got to have a plan. And so that's the reason we're taking some of this recommended amount that came up from across the street to do the study for the trails. Next, you've got the 3 schools, the specialty schools, the math and science, the arts and cyber, then dropping down to line 152, the commission, AIC commission, several things here, talent retention initiative, line 154, money for the National Guard scholarships. That's actually for next year, but we went ahead and used supplemental money because we didn't have a lot of latitude in the budget. The battleship program down in Mobile, the outcomes-based funding would be a pot to help our higher ed institutions and give them additional funds. Then we've got the Best and Brightest STEM pilot project. The deferred maintenance program, and then, this is the same program, line 161. That's, we did it for HBCUs, and we're doing that again in the supplemental. It's also in the budget. Then the bill that we passed on line 162, Retain Alabama, that was the some college, no credential. They didn't graduate either junior college or college, to help a scholarship program for people that had some college and help them get back. Got the Museum of Flight in Birmingham, the early childhood. This is for areas with a waiting list, line 165. Coming on down, rehab services, cerebral palsy, and then money for federal matching funds. They get a 6-to-1 match with every state dollar. They get 6 federal dollars. So Commissioner Birdie-Shaw does a good thing certainly there. Coming on through the higher ed, these are all more or less the same. We did plus up Alabama A&M and Alabama State to help them attain a new dorm at Alabama State, and I know A&M's trying to do something with a science center. Then come on down, we had, the Lieutenant Governor had several things. He had a task force on cyber, this national, I'm at University Huntsville, with a National Cybersecurity Center for Excellence, line 194. That is different from the recommended amount that came from across the street. Then over, turning the page, the difference with the governor's recommendation, you have the McCrary Institute there at Auburn and the Artemis Academy of Excellence at Auburn. Those amounts are the same. We do have a small increase at West Alabama for the Black Belt Scholars Program, and there at the University of West Alabama for grade level children during the summer. Coming on down, we've got Tuskegee, the same amount. Then we get into junior colleges. So junior colleges, you've got the money at the Department of Corrections. Then we have the junior colleges starting on page 11, a long list of junior colleges and various projects that have come from the Chancellor's office. So these are much the same as they were in committee that we had in the committee, but this will spread, as we've talked about, Senator, spread money across the state, past the 4 years into the local areas, these satellite campuses. I'm amazed at the network that the community college system has across our state and how they get out. I don't think they have a campus in every county, but it's probably close to that, at least the vast majority. And with work, you'll see a lot of these programs are workforce training type sites. And again, this came from the Chancellor's office. I'm on lines, we end the community colleges there, and then we have this new program, the Rural Healthcare Opportunities program that one of our own colleagues has been with a commission that she chaired, put this together, and the vision is dual enrollment to help supply healthcare workers across our state. And you'll see I'm on page 13 and 14, the colleges that'll be responsible. The first site we wanted to identify, following up on the recommended school at Demopolis, since there seems to be some synergy there using the campus of Wallace-Selma there that is in Demopolis, and then the high school and the hospital, and making sure that we start the program there to get these children grafted into a dual enrollment track where at least they can get a LPN from the community college there, Wallace-Selma, that has a campus expanding in the Demopolis area. So excited about that program and the potential to attract young people, get them into the healthcare field, and then push them back out to the workforce with that credential. Coming on line 407, the C-Lab needs a dormitory, and this is a start on that endeavor. The Space Science Commission, then we have the Lieutenant Governor's program, the bill that we passed earlier, Education TV, with the a tower in Lamar County, that some places over in West Alabama, they can't receive Alabama Public Television. It's the only place in the state. And so this will make sure that they can receive it there in the far west counties on the Mississippi border. Community service grants, line 423. And then this is line 426. That's for the bill that we passed earlier related to distressed institutions, and helping with that if that bill passes. Historical Commission, we talked about the grants that they do through the budget every year. We included museums in this. That seemed to be important, as long as they're historical, persons, places, or things, and doing that. Coming on AIDB, line 433, then the savings account, we've been calling it, the actual name is the line 435, Educational Opportunities Reserve Fund, that is part of the Rolling Reserve Amendment Bill, that Senate Bill 101. Then Archives, they're going to be redoing their museum over there. It's going to cost more than this, and they also have a potential property purchase in trying to provide for the future. Then the examiners, we do have a study to examine the viability of a residency school for healthcare or healthcare services, and that will be conducted at the examiner's office with an out-of-state vendor to come in and see, is this a viable option? Do our children interested in this field? Would we have enough to fill it? And if so, where should it be in our state? After that, we've got DHR, the Department of Mental Health, the Department of Indian Affairs scholarship program, and we are finished. I know there'll be questions, so.
All right, Senator Roberts.
Mr. President, thank you. Senator, you have a copy next there. It was an amendment that's just technical in nature. I think it was an oversight.
Okay.
We discussed that. You're familiar with that?
Yes. Yes, this would be a friendly amendment.
Okay.
All right, Secretary Reed, receive the amendment, please.
No money, it just clarifies.
Oh, I'm sorry. Senator Orr, we're on the substitute right now. We need to adopt that first.
Yes, I'm sorry, Mr. President. I'd move to adopt the substitute using the previous roll.
All right, any objection? Hearing none, so ordered.
Mr. Albritton, Mr. Williams.
35 ayes, 0 nays. The Senator Orr substitute is adopted. All right, now, Senator Roberts.
Mr. President, I have a technical amendment that Senator has a copy of just to clarify.
All right, Secretary Reed, receive the amendment, please.
Friendly amendment.
Amendment to Senate Bill 87 by Mr. Roberts, replace line 126 on page 5 with the following. Shall be used for Cahaba research for a long COVID study, and 15 million shall be.
Mr. President, I'd like to move adoption of that amendment using previous roll without.
All right, move adoption of this amendment using previous roll. Any objection? Hearing none, so ordered.
Thank you, Mr. President.
Mr. Albritton, Mr. Williams.
35.
All right, 35 ayes, 0 nays. The Senator Roberts amendment is adopted. All right, Senator Singleton.
Yes, Mr. President. Senator Orr, I want to thank you for the work that you've done in keeping a lot of these things closely educated related. I want to thank you for that.
I'm trying.
Closely educated related.
I wouldn't even call it an art form.
Okay, because I'm going to ask again, my amendment going to be about my 2.5 million. I see some things in here that's uneducated related that I could question it. I'm going to ask if out of that $275 million we finna throw in the wind in the streets, okay? And this education related. While I respect what you're doing with these hubs of healthcare pieces, I still don't think it takes away, it doesn't do what we want to do in that area for building something solid for the future, for these children, okay? And I understand the $500,000 that you put in there to do the study, but the study is to say where it's gonna be best to put it in the state. That doesn't necessarily mean that it will come where we want it to go, okay? And so when other schools were being put up, we didn't go through all that to say, but in West Alabama, because we want it, I just want the same fair chance. I'm gonna ask for an up or down vote on my amendment to come out of the $275 million that we just throw out the door for rebates. I'm not taking away from anybody else's special project. I'm not taking away from any other things, because what other people got in here, I want them to have. I may not agree with them all, but I'm not standing here trying to take anything from anybody else's project. I just want, because I think that we're throwing $275 million out the door. It may reduce their $105 down to $103. So what? Or $105.54, $104.54. I don't know what it may end up being. But at the end of the day, I think this is a worthwhile project for us to allow us to give an opportunity in West Alabama for our children to do something. So, Mr. President, with that, I'm going to offer my amendment.
All right, Secretary.
Up or down vote on this amendment.
Yeah, Secretary, read and receive the amendment, please.
Thank you very much.
Amendment to Senate Bill 87 by Senator Singleton. Replace lines 270 and 272 on page 10 with the following. Replace lines 440 and 449 on page 16 with the following.
All right, Senator Orr.
Thank you, Mr. President. I appreciate the gentleman. He's always a fierce fighter for his area. We have put money in the budget, in this supplemental, for a study. He and I have talked about this. With the other schools, we've had a bill that worked its way through the process. Initially, with this particular situation, we didn't have that. It was more the money first, and then without a bill for the legislature to debate. So it now becomes kind of a debate about the funding, and we need to do a study, and I'm all for that, but not the gentleman's amendment. We can have an up or down vote, or I can move to table, whatever you prefer, Senator.
I'm just asking for an up or down vote, since we're throwing away $275 million out the door. We got all these other unrelated education projects at $25 million, $50 million that I don't even know that's going to work. I don't even know if these EV centers are going to work around the state. We don't know whether they're going to work or not. $25 million to build them here, there. But they're projects, and I'm okay with that. I'm not trying to knock anybody else. I just want to see my babies in West Alabama get that shot. And all I'm asking, we're not trying to build a school. I'm not asking for the whole $30 million that we asked for, that the governor asked for in her budget. Right. We just want to be able to tread the water. And at the end of the day, the money is here now. Okay? We're trying to capitalize the money. And I think that the way you got the amendment written up for the study, it doesn't say that it's going to be in my area. All I want is a chance for my babies, and for us to do something for the state of Alabama that's reflective out of West Alabama. And I just asked for an up or down vote. I want to ask for the previous roll. I'd like to ask for the long roll.
And I'd urge members to vote no.
All right, Secretary, call the long roll.
Mr. Albritton. Mr. Allen. Mr. Barfoot. Mr. Beasley. Mr. Bell. Mr. Butler. Mr. Carnley. Mr. Chambliss. Mr. Chasteen. Ms. Coleman. Ms. Coleman Madison. Mr. Elliott. Ms. Figures. Mr. Gavan. Mr. Gudger. Mr. Hatcher. Mr. Hovey. Mr. Jones. Mr. Kelly. Mr. Livingston. Mr. Melson. Mr. Orr.
No.
Mr. Price. Mr. Reed. Mr. Roberts. Mr. Schofield. Mr. Sessions. Mr. Shelnut. Mr. Singleton.
Yes.
Mr. Smitherman. Mr. Stewart. Mr. Stutz. Mr. Wagner. Ms. Weaver. Mr. Williams. Good.
8 ayes, 20 nays. The Senator Singleton amendment fails.
Mr. President,
Senator Singleton,
point of personal privilege.
you're recognized.
I would like to thank this body for telling little babies in West Alabama that they don't mean nothing to you all, but these other special projects that we got out here means everything, and that's where we gonna always be number 50. Thank you very much.
All right, Senator Orr. Senator Barfoot.
Mr. President, thank you. Bear with me 1 second. So I know you put a lot of hard work and effort into this. My concern is primarily from a geographical standpoint. I look at the supplemental appropriations. Now, in the governor's supplemental, there were some projects specifically to Central Alabama and Montgomery. You know, one can certainly argue the nexus, whether or not related to the education budget sufficiently enough. I think there are probably projects in this supplemental that may also fall in that sufficiently related or not. My concern is that this body hear and understand the concerns of Montgomery and the effects that Montgomery have on the river region, Central Alabama, and the state as a whole. One of the concerns with what we're doing or not doing in Montgomery from an appropriation standpoint is Maxwell Air Force Base. Lieutenant Governor has certainly been a champion for making sure that we have various bills that have passed, now become law, and reciprocity, that we support our military families. I have heard from countless military families who believe that an investment needs to be made in the Montgomery area in order to continue to support the mission at Maxwell. That's important because although it's not, planes, it is relevant to continue to make sure that the environment that those airmen and their families and the civil servants that come to Maxwell have an opportunity to not only for a good education, but for them to be able to enjoy themselves while they're here. And in fact, that is part of the BRAC Commission, as I understand it, checklist. And so as Maxwell goes, not only does Montgomery go, but Central Alabama goes, and so goes the state. And I would urge this body to consider the importance of Maxwell, the economic impact that Montgomery and the surrounding areas have on the state, and the geographical disparities that we sometimes see in the budgets. And I just wanted to make a comment about that. Ask my colleagues to consider that. Thank you.
Thanks, Senator Barfoot. All right, Senator Hatcher.
Thank you, Mr. President. Will the gentleman yield? I want to, as I made the comment on yesterday, and obviously piggybacking off Senator Barfoot, the same concern that I have when I want to be clear, because sometimes because people hear sound bites and have allowed sound bites to replace serious discussion, even from my comments on yesterday, I'd like to think that typically I'm fairly clear in what I share, and I never say anything I'm not willing to repeat. What was said yesterday in regards to the resources was talked about as economic development. The $25 million proposed in the governor's budget was for economic development to the Montgomery County Commission. And for whatever reason, when information went out through the media, it became something else. And one of the things that I think is worth repeating again that Senator Barfoot has mentioned is this is not simply limited to the Montgomery community. The impact that this central region has on the state goes well beyond even the fact that it is the capital city. And I would add, finally, that we serve as all of us, all 35, as representatives of the state, as senators. And I am very concerned that somehow or the other, Montgomery, the capital city, was completely left out of the supplemental. And so my hope is that something can be worked. And I'm pleading for help from this body to help us to resolve this issue expeditiously, because it is in the best interest not only of Montgomery and the central region, but also this state. So the plea has gone out, and the people of God said amen. Thank you, Mr. President.
All right. Thanks, Senator Hatcher. Senator
President, could I be recognized?
You're recognized.
All right, thank you. Senator, let me say this to you first before I say secondly and thirdly what I'm gonna say. Okay, first thing, I think when I put a scale out there, you know how you have good, medium, and so-so. You've done a good overall job on this bill. I want to say that. You've done a very good overall job on this bill. I just want you to know that, and I'm sincere.
Thank you. It's been the most challenging, as I told you yesterday.
Yes, and I want to tell everyone in here that I always say this because you all decide, and even when we were majority, still many of you all decided that what assignments we've had. And I want to thank each and every one of y'all for every year that I've been in here. I've had the opportunity to serve on this particular committee. So when I said it about my chairman, I've seen the difficulties, and I've seen what you've been able to do in that, and I want to give you kudos on that. The second thing, though, that I would like to say is that I'm not talking about anything but the situation at this moment. The senator from the Black Belt, who is our minority leader, he makes a good point about the need. And I'm gonna share something with everybody, and of course the chairman is doing something else, I can talk. We got a choice bill out there. We're talking about funding choice, and we are not talking about adequate funding to folks who ain't gonna get a chance to get the choice. We have sometime a vision of trying to make our state look good by eliminating certain people, and that as being put in the mix of the count of what makes us look good. We can't leave people behind so that we can look good. We can't make the rules to where we're only looking at these people who come here. Now, you might say, what are you talking about? I'm talking about, number one, the school. If you have a school and you have, let's just take this room. It's 35 of us in this room. If we pass a statute or something that we reduce the number of senators to 20 in this state, it's gonna cost the same amount of money to fund this building and this room, how comfortable we are, whether it's 20 of us or it's 35 of us. That's the problem with our schools. Even though we may reduce the population because choice is gonna send somebody somewhere else, these kids left behind need the same increase and the same monies as if the same numbers were there. That, you understand that? Same thing with teacher units. Because if they need help, they need the same units or more with reduced size of classes. So somehow we kind of forget in our zealous to be able to move things to a better situation that we seem somehow to leave people behind. Unintentionally. You know, I use an analysis like an airplane. We are going down the runway and we have our sights set on taking off. But what we forget sometimes is that the airplane, I'm gonna have to hit the gavel on the desk up here, not the lieutenant governor, but on the well, because the well, for the well, the airplane, I want y'all to hear this. Excuse me, see what I just did to him accidentally? That's what we doing to students. The wings, we going down the airport with our eyes set here, and we are taking out all these other people. So as we move forward, I am requesting a commitment that the next batch of money that we get, we are to improve what we already got, instead of all these new innovative things and ignoring what we have. And that's the students that we're leaving behind in these schools for the sake of creating all these beautiful other schools and situations and not addressing their needs. Such as some of these schools don't have certain kind of math teachers. They don't have special languages. They don't have any of those things. So we've got to make sure that we do that. Now, having said that, the third reason why I'm up here is that I have a friendly amendment. And the friendly amendment pertains to the pages, if you got your book, it pertains to, let me see, I'm ahead of the game. I'm gonna find it.
Senator
Oh,
Smithman,
yeah.
while you're looking for that, do you mind if I recognize some special
Yes,
guests
sir.
in the gallery?
Yes, sir.
All right, the guest of Senator Coleman, when I call your name, if you could please stand. Deputy Treasurer of Jefferson County, Sherry McLean, retired Lieutenant Colonel Carolyn Culpepper. If y'all could please stand. Welcome to the Alabama Senate.
If you all turn to page 14, really it's 15, and that's a list of schools in preparation for the nursing training and getting us the nurses that we need. That was I think just a innocent omission of one of the schools that if you go check the record, they have the highest percentage of students passing the state exam for RNs in the state, and that's Lawson State Community College. They have the highest, better than any of these folks on here. And I know they were just an oversight. I really do. And yes, they help rural Alabama too. They help McCalla. They have a branch on the west side of the county. Jeff State is on the east side of the whole county. In the county that has the largest population in the whole state of Alabama, we have 800,000 people living in one county. 800. So I'm just asking that the name be included in there. No money, no nothing. And if Mr. Chairman will allow me to, I want him to know that this friendly amendment.
Right. And I apologize. I learned that there's two other colleges that are not in here that I need to attend, and we'll attend to that in the House. And I know the House Chairman will work with me. But since you're ready, Senator, we'll go ahead. All 67 counties are supposed to be touched, and I didn't proof the list. I just saw a lot of names and figured that, looks good to me. So,
if this the only thing that's out of this, you did a good job.
oh, I'm sure they've got a lot of naysayers out there.
I'd like to offer this.
This is friendly.
Secretary Reed received the amendment.
Amendment to Senate Bill 87 by Mr. Smitherman, replacing lines 403 and 404 with the following. Jefferson State, Jefferson, Shelby, St. Clair, Chilton,
Amendment fits.
I'll get Gary. So the amendment fits. Senator, are you ready to move the amendment?
Senator Smithman? You're welcome.
Up there. If there's no other questions, I ask for unanimous consent to use the previous roll on passage of this amendment.
Any objection? Seeing none, so ordered.
Oh, wait a minute. No, he said this one got some no's on it. Yeah. Yeah.
Clerk call the long roll.
Long roll.
Mr. Albritton. Mr. Allen. Mr. Barfoot. Mr. Beasley. Mr. Bell. Mr. Butler.
Urge you to vote aye.
Mr. Cornley.
No, Birmingham.
Mr. Chambliss.
That's the Blue Ribbon College.
Mr. Chasteen. Ms. Coleman. Ms. Coleman Madison.
That's it. That's all. That's all.
Mr. Elliott. Ms. Figures.
You just want their name?
Yeah, that's all.
Mr. Gavan.
That's all. That's all.
Mr. Gudger. Mr. Hatcher. Mr. Hovey. Mr. Jones. Mr. Kelly. Mr. Livingston. Mr. Melson. Mr. Orr. Mr. Price. Mr. Reed. Mr. Roberts. Mr. Schofield. Mr. Sessions. Mr. Shelnut. Mr. Singleton. Mr. Smitherman. Mr. Stewart. Mr. Stutz. Mr. Wagner. Ms. Weaver. Mr. Williams.
$35 ayes, no nays. The Smitherman amendment is adopted.
Thank y'all very, very much.
Senator Orr.
Thank you, Mr. President. I would yield to the gentleman across the way.
Senator Barfoot, you're recognized.
Thank you, sir. One last comment or question, and let me see if I can find it. There's an allocation of $10 million to charter schools in here, and I believe the language indicates that that would be a per pupil basis.
Correct.
And it is my understanding in reading that language, first of all, Montgomery has 3 conversion charter schools that are very important, and I think in the success or potential success for MPS is that that money would include those conversion charters per each individual child in those conversion charters.
Yeah, I can't answer definitively because the appropriation came from across the street and said $10 million to charter schools. Then, at the request of the charter school representatives, I put in, they wanted in on a per pupil, better to clarify whether you're going to do per school or whatever, and some schools are bigger than others. So they asked for a per pupil basis. Now, whether that includes the 3 conversions, I can't say definitively. I'm glad to look into it and make a call and get back to you on that, and then we can certainly clarify in the House if that's your pleasure.
I think that language is sufficient enough to me to indicate legislative intent because it does not differentiate between conversions nor startups. It just says per pupil in charter schools. So that seems, at least at this point, sufficient to me to say that that money is supposed to be allocated per pupil at a charter school with no further definition. So
one would think, but
yes, sir.
That's
I'm big on legislative intent. So that is, I believe, the intent of the language is written. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. All right, Mr. President, seeing no other questions, I would move third reading using the previous roll.
Any objection to calling the short roll? Seeing none, desk call the short roll.
Mr. Albritton, Mr. Williams.
35 ayes, no nays. SB 87 passes as amended. Senator Orr.
Thank you, Mr. President. Members, I know tummies are rumbling and people are hungry and it's tail light Thursday and all that. I did want to thank you all for your participation and input. Thank the gentleman across the way for his comments, which I certainly understand. And I do appreciate your working with me on this. For you new members, this is an unprecedented budget and unprecedented time. A lot of decision points in it. Like I told the committee yesterday, no budget is perfect. But at least we have something. Still need to make changes in the House on a few items, and but we will soldier on. And I wish everyone a nice weekend. And thank you again for your help.
Mr. President.
Pro Tem Reed.
Mr. President, thank you so much. Ladies and gentlemen, we finished with this process, and I just want to thank each of you, as I always do, for you being in your place, defending things that are important in your district, promoting positive things for the people of the state of Alabama. I also want to say a word of appreciation to the Education Budget Committee, and in particular, Senator Orr. Senator Orr, thank you for your hard work. Job well done, sir. We appreciate you very much. I appreciate, again, all of the engagement and involvement of the members. Members, let me remind you of this so you are aware. Next week, of course, we will be here on Tuesday, but we have an agreement with our colleagues on the 5th floor that it will be a 2-day week next week, so you're aware of that. So we'll continue with all of our activities on Wednesday as normal, but we'll have a 2-day session week next week. With that, Mr. President, I'm going to ask that we leave the journal open until 2 p.m.
Objection.
We have an objection.
All right, sir. We'll strike that from the motion. I'm going to ask that we adjourn until Tuesday of next week at 2:30 p.m.
We are adjourned.
Thank you, Mr. President.
All right, call the roll. Call the roll.
Barfoot, Senator Beasley, Senator Butler, Senator Coleman, Senator Hogan, Senator Livingston, Senator Price, Senator Sessions, Senator Stewart, Senator Weaver, Senator Williams,
Here. All right, call Mr. Chambers' bill, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Yes, sir.
This bill is dealing with the Joint Transportation Committee, and it deals with how we elect our chair and a couple other things. But right now, our chair takes office in April and goes through April, or goes through March, I guess. But it just doesn't really align with anything else, and there's always some confusion with it. So this bill would change it to a calendar year, January through December. And then it would also elect the chair and vice chair in the last meeting of the year. And then it would do 2 years House, 2 years Senate, and just provide some stability and a little bit less confusion.
Mr. Chairman, move for give bill favor report.
Oh, hold. We got an amendment.
Amendment? I'm sorry.
I'm going to offer the amendment, accepted by, seconded by Ms. Weaver. And this amendment, it codifies area regarding the collection of local motor fuel excise tax rate information to be provided to the Department of Revenue instead of the Department of Transportation. So.
And I've read the amendment. It's technical in nature.
Okay, all right. Vote on we got a second by Senator Weaver. Call the roll, please. The amendment.
Senator Butler, Senator Coleman, Senator Hogan, Senator Livingston,
Aye.
Senator Sessions,
Aye.
Senator Price, Senator Stewart, Senator Weaver, Senator Williams,
Aye. Okay. All right, the motion be,
Go ahead.
no.
No.
You gonna make the motion? All right. Got a motion on the floor, second by Senator Price. Motion by Senator Weaver, second by Senator Price. All in favor of using previous roles, say aye. Okay, all right, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, committee.
Okay, Senator Weaver.
Mr. Chairman, I'm not sure what your intention is for SB 72 this morning, but I want the committee to know that our subcommittee has met, and we do have a sub that we believe takes care of some issues with the bill. So if any of you, I don't know if it's your intention to move that today or not, but I have this for the committee if anybody wants to have a copy.
Since that bill showed up a little late this morning, let's do this. Let's go ahead and carry the bill over and for next week. Do I hear a motion for that to happen? All right, and second. All right, all in favor say aye. All right, thank you for coming this morning.
Hey, good morning. How you doing?
I'm well. How are you doing?
Hey, I introduced myself to that good-looking grandson of yours. I told him that we were buddies. I said, don't hold it against me, but I like your granddad.
I appreciate you.
Oh, sure.
We stirred it up.
It was. They just adjourned.
What did you do?
They
Passed one bill and carried it.
They passed the Joint Transportation Committee one, and they carried it up.
Oh, okay.
They-
What's
They had a separate, an additional sub that.
Just me, right here. I'm gonna be in here.
It's just good timing, that's all.
All of it in